So, well, thank you, everybody. Isn't it nice after, what, 14 months, 16 months, we all get together? And then what we do is we stuff you into an unair-conditioned conference room. So that's what we wanted to do today. I'm going to give you a couple housekeeping things. So we are on Zoom right now, and I will let you know that whatever Joe whispers right here with this microphone will be picked up by everyone and recorded. So
a lot of responsibility.
This is a hot zone for inappropriate conversations, not right here. Been an interesting conference to set up. Like we were talking about, we've had the pandemic going through and trying to figure out when we can do this in a manner that we can do it either in a hybrid or, as you're seeing, everybody in person or most everybody in person. So I want to thank definitely Paul and Tony, the rest of the members that were active co-chairs. Paul and Tony were co-chairs. Ann Pachette from my office, Mary Kriegel, Joe Willauer, Kelly Creswell up here, Julie Jackshaw, Austin, Nicole Rush, and Steve and Jan Stoddard. Other things, we have to pay for all of this, so I want to make sure we get the members, the membership sponsors for MEDA in general, and then for the conference sponsors, obviously Northwestern Energy and Department of Commerce, Montana Youth Apprentice, Newfields, Small Business Development, and Montana Small Business Enterprise Program, KLJ, Montana Cooperative Development Center, Cushing Terrell, and Mission West, community developers and partners for the conference. Bozeman Economic Development, Staley Engineering, MBT, Montana DEQ, Montana West Economic Development, Prospera, Butte Local Development Corp, Big Sky Economic Development, Missoula Economic Development, and Sweetgrass is in the house. So, we have 4 on board with Zoom right now. So why don't we all wave at them? Or right here, I will wave at them. So, some housekeeping things. It is going to be warm today, so keep hydrated. Make sure if you need to get out and get something liquid, go get it. Refreshments are in 106. Restrooms are down the hall. And lunch will be at the campus center right over here. So at some point we'll break and we'll give ourselves a chance to kind of walk around and actually stretch our legs. Come over, we'll have some lunch over there. And then we'll come on back over here. Now, it is just a short walk, but I think at that point we're going to run it. So what I do really want to do is actually turn it over to Steve, and he will lean in to our next 2 days worth of conversation. So Steve Arbuscow from Over in Billings.
Thank you, Brian. Why am I wearing a jacket today? Good morning, everybody. Oh my gosh. This brings back so many memories. Class, Montana Tech, sitting in the audience, probably half asleep in the back, next to you guys that I'm looking at. And now I feel like I have so much power. So get out your number 2 pencil and a blue book, because we're going to take a quiz. I'm serious. You're going to need something to write on when we get started. Brian, thank you. Thank you for your leadership, pulling this together. Gloria, really everybody that was involved in the process. I want to thank also the folks that put in the heavy lifting on developing the next gen analysis, the original one that we did. And then Mary Craigle did an awesome job of creating this update, the supplement. So we're gonna have a quiz about this today. So that was part of your homework. And you all did your homework. Some of you did your homework, okay. That's good, then we're gonna find out. So here, and this is gonna be participation. Here's your first quiz question. This is multiple choice. You guys thought I was kidding. Joe, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, good. So this is multiple choice. Here's the question. Why did MEDA launch the next generation of community and economic development tools analysis? Here are your options. Are you listening? Some of you are really listening good. Some are not. So Sarah, would you sit down in the back of the class, please? Okay. Choice A, remember the question, why? Why did we do this work? Choice A is, it's been 20 years since we set our core economic development programs. That's A. B is, a lot had changed and is changing about our communities, the Montana economy, and the needs of businesses. That's B. C, MEDA and our partners wanted to be prepared to bring thoughtful input, data, analysis, case studies to the dialogue and policy considerations around community and economic development. That's C. Are you guys writing this down? D. D is, wait till I give you the last one. You don't know that. D, it was important to both show leadership and build partnerships. So we wanted to unite around a common effort to discover innovative ways to support Montana's need to stay regionally competitive. That's D. E, it was Steve's idea just to make us all feel bad about ourselves. So, and the answer is, first person to get the answer right gets a hat.
Hey.
Definitely.
Definitely E? Oh. All right, well, you get a hat just for saying that. It wasn't E, it was all of the above except D. I really didn't want to make us feel bad. We didn't want to make ourselves feel bad. We had done tremendous work. We just thought we needed to catch up to where everything else was moving, right? So that's why we did that. So that was the first quiz. You're not done yet. There's more questions coming your way. So how did we do this? I want to take us back in time. Think about this. In a spirit of partnership, we launched the analysis in December, I think, of 2019, right? Remember that far ago, Patty? Remember that far ago? He was on his phone, just right then. He was on his phone when I called on him. In class. This is what we're in class. You guys can't do that. So we had 60 plus businesses and organizations. All of you guys are laughing. Lorene is saying, hey, Steve is on this big power trip right now, so we better all pay attention. We had 60 plus businesses and organizations come together with MEDA, right? And then we had the Montana Chamber Foundation come alongside us as well and say, hey, this is important work. We want to be a part of it. So we really pulled together quite a group of people for this effort. We started our focus group meetings. They began immediately. We headed to Eastern Montana with our consultants, TIP Strategies. So we did the towns in eastern part of the state, and those were great focus groups. We traveled on some of those Austins. I think you and I were on the road with those team members. It was a fantastic outreach effort. Spent a little time in central Montana. We went to the Mako annual meeting. Sarah, remember, hosted a lot of conversations with county commissioners. That was really important for us. We went to Butte and Anaconda and Dillon in that area. And I'm glad our strategy team was able to get out of Butte in one piece, and that was good. Then as we went into we started our trip into Western Montana, what happened? So it was March-ish of 2020, right? and things started to shut down on us. And so we had to go virtual, and we did Zoom meetings and we did conference calls, anything we could do to kind of make that happen. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
the
you remember that.
beginning of the chaos.
I know. And so it really got difficult for us to do that, but it was an effort that was a big undertaking on all of our parts. The process was managed by a steering committee. Remember, many of us met almost on a every other week basis to help guide this process. We had a stakeholder group that we'd communicate with on an ongoing basis. We did surveys and focus groups. We asked our strategists to do some independent analysis. Tell us what you've learned in other parts of the country. So we weren't just talking to ourselves, we were learning from what other people were doing as well. And then we had multiple sessions of editing. Remember those? And then we got into what I call our natural arm wrestling competition, which is what we do really good. And do you remember that? Because Joe always agrees with what Brett says, and I always agree with what Patty says, and Sarah always agrees with everybody else in the room. We arm wrestled over this thing. We took it seriously. But I was thinking about this the other day. That's okay. That's part of what makes us who we are as an organization, because we have different perspectives on things, different life experiences, different professional experiences that we bring to bear on that. We have unique needs in our own communities that we're trying to get addressed. So that arm wrestling is in understanding that we come from a different place that way. And then none of you have this stubborn determination to serve our community. How many of you have a stubborn determination? So that's that natural reflection of that, who we are as individuals in economic development. We want to talk very briefly about accomplishments, and then Brian, I promise you I'll wrap up and we can move on. I have a few things that I want to highlight, and then I want you to tell me what you gleaned from the information and what you think we can be proud of in terms of what was accomplished as it relates to the work that we did in the analysis. So you're going to get to participate and just shout out some thoughts that way. Again, I want to just recognize Mary for the great work in that update piece. If you haven't gone through that yet, please take some time. It's really comprehensive in its approach. But the framework for this came up with 4 key findings. This is findings that we gave and dialogued and came out of our focus group. And those key findings were expanding collaboration, saying it's more important now than it ever has been in order to improve Montana's competitiveness. The second finding was most impactful tools and programs are driven by strategy. What's our strategy? What's the end goal we're trying to accomplish? Third finding was infrastructure investments focused toward innovation, remote workforce, kind of a changing economy. How are we building out the infrastructure for that? And then the fourth finding was demand is high across the state of Montana for community and economic development tools. Communities are starving for more resources and tools to get things done to move their community forward. And then we created an action plan around 3 recommendations: modernize Montana's programs and tools, invest in Montanans through entrepreneurship, as well as training and workforce development. And then third, upgrade Montana's economic and community development structures, a heavy emphasis on placemaking and infrastructure development. So that was the framework for this plan. And what we really wanted to do for a moment now is have you share out what you think we've accomplished. I went through that outline that Mary did, and there's a lot of good work that took place. Just the working groups that came together. If you were a part of the broadband working group, raise your hand. So Tracy, Allison, you guys just rocked that and did such a fantastic job. I think you deserve a recognition for the Ag working group. If you're a part of that group, raise your hand. Patty, others, fantastic work and much work yet to come. And frankly, much work yet to come on all these working groups. We had a workforce talent attraction working group. If you're a part of that, everyone just leaned into what we learned and tried to apply it to what we're experiencing in the state of Montana now. There was legislation that was passed to a great extent was reflective of what we discovered and found in our next gen analysis. I really like this one, and this one maybe I missed part of it during the session, but who knows what House Bill 246 did? Tell me. Just tell me what, yeah, go ahead.
Authorizes elected school boards to expand partnerships with work-based learning partners.
So I was meeting with the superintendent of our school district the other day. They're giving credits, a half a school credit to students in their junior or senior year if they go out and get a job and work and bring that experience back to as part of their curriculum, back to their work. So it incentivizes high school students who need a half a credit, and they're going to get credit for their work experience. And that provided a platform for that to happen. And we just had a discussion in our organization with our superintendent on how to expand that. What else has happened since our analysis that you feel is a really strong accomplishment? Go ahead, just shout it out. Oh, we've got work to do. You guys need to read this. You honestly need to look at the details in this update. Mary did an awesome job just correlating the things that we've gone through in the last year as it relates to the analysis that we did. There's some really powerful things here, and it set the stage for the work that we have ahead. So I'm going to leave you with this. I think we have a huge opportunity in front of us. And many of the reasons we started this analysis are so true today, times 10. If you read the signs, it will tell you exactly why our work as economic developers and our constant study of our craft and our own innovation as economic developers is so vital to the work that we do. Here's what the signs say. Montana's unaffordable housing crisis. Did you read the BBRE study? Help wanted signs everywhere. And now there's new signs next to the help wanted sign that says hours of operation limited, can't find help. I was so disappointed when I drove past Wheat, Montana on our way in yesterday. I always stop there. I always grab a cookie. They were closed. And the sign said we can't have help. Our hours are being limited that way. I'm going to close with a couple of things. Every single community in the state of Montana, most of us, especially our larger communities, are now operating with fewer workers than pre-pandemic. Estimates across the state, 10,000 fewer workers today actively working in Montana. In Yellowstone County, that number, just in our county alone, close to 3,000 less people in the workforce than we had before. So if we don't think we have work to do as a team, as an organization, as a group and colleagues in economic development, wow, just read the signs. It is a tremendous both challenge and opportunity facing Montana. So here's my encouragement to you, and that you're gonna have to get up here in a second to participate in this. I would encourage us to replace our individual focus on our own unique needs with a focus on our common set of needs. I would also ask us to replace our stubborn determination for my community with a common resolve for all of our communities across Montana. I want you all to get up, if you choose, grab a marker, and on that board, just sign your name, put a little note, whatever you want to do. Am I getting off script? No? Okay, I'm good. And that's just in recognition that we really are in this all together, right? This is not just about what's going on in Billings. It's also about what's going on in Dillon, or it's going on in Eureka. It's all about all of us in Colstrip. And so we are in this together. So if that's a charge that you want to be a part of, and you do because you're here, we're going to encourage you just to get up, take a deep breath, grab a marker, sign your name, to write something if you want. Just come up, gather, make your declaration. Yes, we concur. We're in this together. We're committed to doing it together as a team. Thank you, guys.
And the executive director of BLDC and Headwaters. I'm honestly pretty dang excited to be here and not be on a Zoom call with all you guys. How nice is that? I ran into Steve last night. I had to remind him that he did actually have to wear pants today. It's been about 18 months for most of us, and yeah, using a belt's kind of been a foreign concept. So Steve laid out really kind of how we got here, and I get the fun part of this, which is where we're going. So I know I've been in MEDA for about 8 years, which has gotten to be a long time, but for a lot of us is maybe a half or a quarter to some of the history we have. And one of the threads that's always been brought up to me is relevancy. How many of you guys, show of hands, have had conversations within MEDA of, man, how do we stay relevant? How do we make sure people know what we're up to? So with that being said, how much did our relevancy increase last year? A lot, a little. Yeah, I know for me, that was the transition we saw. We know in this room that we do a ton of good work, right? The impact we have in our communities, the impact we have in our businesses, the impact we have statewide. We understand that, but getting that message across the state to folks that aren't seeing the work we do, or if it's something that we're recruiting and we're keeping it hush hush, I mean, that message is easy to get lost. And last year with the pandemic, I know our team, which shout out to Butte, because we've got a huge contingency here today. The phone started ringing on March, 17th, at about the time you woke up, and didn't stop ringing about the time you went to bed. Everybody experienced that as well last year. And it really kind of shot us into the spotlight, where economic development had been behind the scenes for a long time. But when we have loans to small businesses, we're providing guidance on federal and state dollars. We're working with communities that frankly are scared because of the pandemic. The need for our services was higher than ever. And I think today, moving forward with the Next Gen study, is a tremendous opportunity for us to not only show that we are recovering from the pandemic, but we're building back stronger communities, stronger businesses, and we're going to be guiding the tools that are the future of economic development. That growth, that relevancy is so important for what we do, and I can't be more excited about the timing we have, because the ability to get everyone in this same room, leverage those opportunities, and continue to push the state forward is exactly why we're all here. So from the notes I got, we've got a few things I wanted to go over. So the first one is building communities. And obviously Steve mentioned the tremendous issues we're having with housing. Of course, we know the challenges we have with broadband, but as we've seen more people move to our state than ever, being able to have strong communities is the foundation that's going to get people there. I know within our region, we're seeing growth in our tiniest towns. We've got projects out in Lima Dell. We're of course seeing investment in Uptown Butte. I know from our calls on the CRDC region, the MEDA calls, but that's happening everywhere. You're seeing investments in towns that I frankly can't remember the name of if they're not in our region, our big cities, and everywhere in between. And Steve hit the point on the head. What's good for our smallest communities is good for our biggest communities and vice versa. And that's the message to me that I think is so important for this meeting, is recognizing that we are working together on this. And that's where we really came together last year as well. I know I would call my counterparts from across the state and say, man, I'm struggling with this. I don't know what the heck to do. What are you guys doing? And being able to network, being able to reach out to others, being able to make those connections was so impactful for all of us. We want to be able to strengthen business and entrepreneurship. And of course, the small businesses we have throughout the state really are the backbone of our economy. How do we continue to develop tools that are going to support them? What are we able to do, whether it's through our SBDC, our Food and Ag Development Centers, our CRDC, our Women's Business Center, to make sure entrepreneurs have the capital that they need, they have the training they need, they're getting the tools they need to grow. And then certainly one of the biggest elephants in the room is workforce. Like Steve mentioned, I mean, signs are everywhere. Everybody's hiring. How do we get people here? How do we take the people that are here and train them? How do we grow that workforce so that we're not maintaining that baseline, but we are training the workforce for the future? I know within our region, we're excited to model similar to what other regions have done, and we're launching workforce groups. But how do we maintain that? How do we have that a year from now, 5 years from now? Make sure the workforce really is developing at the speed of business. And yeah, I wanted to make sure you guys are on time. And Steve promised me he'd take more time than he did, so.
I could do more.
I know, you know, I like a good lecture as well. Before I got into this world, I would substitute teach. And the biggest benefit I had of that was just my physical size, as well as very long hair to scare kids. I know I don't have this scary impact on most of you, maybe a couple, but
We're scared, Joe.
I know, that's what I was going for, you know, and I would like to be referred to as Mr. Willauer for the rest of the day. But I just want to reiterate that we are here to work together. And I think the last year really has proven that that's what we do best. Put aside our differences, put aside the size of our communities, what your personal goals are, and come to these sessions with the mindset that we are working together. We want to be able to build the state economy. We want to continue to lead statewide growth. And we want to make sure that as we look at recovery, we're not recovering to a baseline. We're building a future that's bigger, better, and brighter. With that, I'm very excited to introduce Jermaine. So when we went about this process, honestly, it was a very quick turn. I think Jermaine can echo those sentiments. We had several really, really good applications. We went through a great process. We did interviews, and we're very proud to be able to select Jermaine and Cadence Consulting. He's a Bozeman resident that frankly, I know personally, I'm thrilled to be having us lead through this exercise. It's going to be an incredibly fun day and a half. It's going to be an incredibly warm day and a half. This will be the last time you see me wearing a sport coat. I mentioned to Abby, I was jealous of the short sleeves. I'm debating whether I'll rip the shirt sleeves off or not. But we'll see how the day goes. So with that, I'd like to bring Jermaine forward. Thank you.
Thank you all for welcoming me and my team here. Joe gave me his hair, so he must have cut it. If any of you want to borrow some, you can. But I'm glad to be here. It was a very short turn, as they said. I think the selection was in the first week of June. So it wasn't a very long time to get ready for this. And my colleagues and I have talked about it. It's pretty rare that you're asked to facilitate or to be a part of something of this scale with no prior connection to the people that you're going to be kind of leading and talking with. So I'm excited to get to know you all. This is quite a big endeavor for the state, and I'm proud to be a part of it and play a role in it. And so thank you for that. I'm from South Carolina originally, in Anderson, South Carolina. So we have a lot of similar things that exist here in South Carolina when I was growing up. You know, most people, even if you've never visited the state, you're familiar with Charleston, you're familiar with Myrtle Beach, you're familiar with Hilton Head. Those things are along the coast. I'm not from the coast. So they get all the attention, and we get we're kind of like the doormat of the state. I'm from the upstate, just north of Atlanta, south of Charlotte. I'm from up there. Most people probably never even heard of the upstate of South Carolina until recently, because this team that represents this university is about 15 minutes from the house where I grew up. They wear orange and white, called the Clemson Tigers. They're close to home. So they don't there's no mall in Clemson. There's no hospital in Clemson. There's nothing really in Clemson but Clemson. So they come to Anderson, you know, and there are places around here that are like that, right? You don't have those facilities. So people are familiar with it now, but they weren't then. So we have different economies, just like Montana does. There's a whole different, even people dress differently on the coast than they do in the upstate. There's different cuisine on the coast than there is in the upstate. So vastly different, but we're the same. We're all South Carolinians, and you're all Montanans. You know, and I'm proud now to call myself. I'll share a little bit of the story. I have a young son, 8 years old, and his birthday was June the 7th. My parents came out here, and my dad's 81, my mom's 72. They never ever thought they would come to Montana. They never had a reason to, but we live here now. And so I was extremely, and I don't get excited about much, but I was really excited that they were coming out. They took the initiative, purchased their own tickets without asking me to pay for it. And they even sent me an email of, my mom called me and she was like, did you get our confirmation? And I was like, no. Oh, I probably had it. I just hadn't looked at it. And she said, did you get the confirmation? I said, no. I was like, where you going? And she's like, we're going to Bozeman. I was like, oh, okay, when? And so she told me, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. They wanted to see Montana that bad. And I wanted them to see it, but I never thought it would happen, right? But they showed up and they were elated with the things that you can communicate. I can communicate to my parents why we're enamored with the state, but you have to feel it. You know, so it's not just what you see when you look out the horizon. It's not just being flanked by mountain ranges, the greenery and the outdoor experiences and all that stuff. This right there at our fingertips in this state. It's people, it's y'all. That's what makes this place special. It's the people. And so, as Joe said, Brian said, people said, we're all in this together. I'm proud to be a part of it because I live here now. Right? And I have the opportunity, my colleagues and I, to help with this huge endeavor. And that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. We can contribute, even if it's just at an arm's length, because we're not deeply involved in the economic development and all those things, but we're here. And we're here and we're a part of it. So thank you for that. My team members, Ben Flanagan is at the back, taking photos. Yeah. And then we have Adam Onulov, who is in Canada, in Alberta, and he's manning the Zoom right now and all of the slides and those things. Okay, so he's there with us. Ben's up from the San Antonio area of Houston. I'm sorry, of Texas. He's up here to help out. So it's a pretty big endeavor. Cadence, this is our organization. Very small consultancy based in Bozeman. And but most of the experience that we've had has been international. You know, I was told some folks recently that I have not, you know, the last 11 years, I have not generated or earned 1 penny of income in the state that I've lived in, not one. I've worked in Australia, all over the world, not 1 penny of income. This is the first time that I'm doing work in my home state, the state that I live in. So thank y'all for that. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. The ethos here is really important. What we're being asked to do falls right in line with that. Simple, but not easy. Very simple thing, to work together, to collaborate, to drive consensus, very simple. It's not that easy. We have competing interests sometimes. You know, we do it all the time at home with your families. Someone may want pizza for dinner, someone may want steak, someone may want fish. How do we reach? Normally we don't cook all those things. We come up with something and that's what we go with, right? That's what we do. That's what we're asked to do here, right? So there will be a time when everyone will get to share their thoughts, their disagreement with things. We will kind of expose some of the issues from the study, because understanding the timing of the study didn't necessarily run its course. It's kind of stopped short because of COVID. We all went through a lot of stuff over the course of the last year and a half, but we're coming back together. We're gonna get it done. It's hot in here, as everyone said, but we're all hot. Right? So again, this is the metaphor for what we're tasked to do. We're all in this hot box together. So when you walk out of here, you go back to your respective corners of Montana and homes, and your offices, remember that we were all sweating together. Okay? And on that note, I did, some of you may know this. I used to play football.
We can't hear back here because of all the fans.
Oh,
Could you really speak up? for
Wow.
traffic?
well, I'll walk around. How about that? Oh, no. Oh, yeah, we get it.
This is the receiver for it.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. Not steady, get this thing down a little bit. Hey, this is what happens. You gotta roll with it. Thank you.
Of course.
Let's see. I don't wanna blow anyone away with my voice. But as I was saying, I'm not this size by accident. I used to play football. I went to the University of Notre Dame. Played football there, seasons 1991 to 1994. So I experienced some wins, some losses. Now I played for the great Blue Oaks. And he used to say that the people you can trust most are the ones you eat with, sleep with, breathe with, pray with, stay with. So we're gonna do some of that today together, right? We're gonna do some of that. And we're gonna have a good time while we do it. So today we're going to use some technology. We have a slide here. We're using Poll Everywhere. We asked you all to download that app. Did you do it?
Yeah.
Okay. If you haven't done so, go to the App Store now, download Poll Everywhere. Okay. It'll take a little time to let you all do that because we're going to have some things that we're going to see. We're going to capture.
You're too close to the receiver.
All right.
Is it the receiver?
Some of you AV folks up. That thing?
No, receiver is over there.
first thing on
the
box.
There you go.
All right. Okay, cool. Throw it in the window. Yeah, throw it, put it out in the heat.
I think.
I don't think so. I don't think that has with the back.
I'm wondering.
It's got a speaker, you're gonna get feedback.
Come back.
Yeah.
Come to the back. But that would be weird. Let me go over here. Let's try it over here. See if this works. Get away from the logic there. Better. Need an expert. No, no phone, no. Elbow. All right. Maybe, I don't know. All right, but we'll keep going and we'll get it fixed here. It's like every time I move it, it's. Anyway, all right. Don't move. All right. All right, so you. Yeah, all right. See what you can do, being down. All right, so anyway, so we're gonna use Poll Everywhere to capture things real time. We're also using Miro, which is kind of like a whiteboard. Adam's running those things in the background. It's not me, sorry, I'm not doing it. Maybe I'm just energetic. I'm just.
Try setting it down and see the picture looks at.
Sure. Let's see. All right. It's picking it up.
And then be a little closer.
All right. You got it? All right, cool. All right. So anyway, so we're using Poll Everywhere and Miro to capture everything. We do have some ground rules that we're going to use. Next. All right, so we're gonna go with you. All right, so ground rules. We're in this together. We're gonna keep saying that all day long. And metaphorically, we want to open our arms up. We want to sign this banner. We want to open ourselves up to the opportunities that are in front of us. We want to respect one another. Okay? Got to lead with high regard for one another, and I think you all already have that, but I haven't said it. Passion over emotion. Okay? So we understand that some of these topics might be very hot and figuratively for some of you. Okay? But lead with your passion, not with your emotion. Because once you start getting emotional and start talking about things, people start to pay more attention to how you're saying stuff than what you're saying. So it's not so much about the content anymore, it's about how you're delivering it. So be passionate, please. Stay focused and on topic. We want to make sure we do that. One person speaking at a time for obvious reasons. Again, we do have a small mic there. It is picking, if that small mic there beside Joe will pick up the smallest conversation. We won't hear it here, but the folks that are on virtually will. And this is being recorded, so and it'll be posted on MEDA's site. So please don't say anything that you would not want other people to hear. Okay. All voices are important. That everyone needs to be heard. To be actively facilitated. No grenades. Well, what do I mean by that? I put that in every time I lead a thing. I say that it's okay to object. It's okay to say something that's a little bit contrary. That's fine, and it's expected. But don't say things intentionally to disrupt the flow of things or to throw people off. That's going us off. So that's no grenades, please. Make your point quite succinctly. Be patient. We got a lot of people in here. Again, it's hot. There are some fans floating around. We have electric ones. You guys can go old school, just pull out some paper and start fanning yourselves. That's fine. And please feel free to get up, excuse yourself, go to a cooler area in the building if you feel necessary to go outside in the shade, just to cool yourself off and stay hydrated, please. We want to start and end on time. We want to meet new people. Raise your hand if you're new to the organization. Hey, look at that. Look around, please. That's a lot of hands. Hey, now we got a problem. I don't know about Zoom. They'll probably still be able to see people. That's fine. That's fine. But look, we have a lot of new people, myself included. So let's meet one another. Let's not do what most of us have a propensity to do. When we have breakouts and stuff like that, we tend to just congregate with the folks we already know and then think like we think that are from our region or whatever else. Let's try to mix it up a little bit. You know, if you're from a rural area, maybe you can get together with someone that's from urban. If you're from the east, maybe connect with someone from the west, because that's how we learn. We learn from each other. Okay. No cussing, no spitting, no shooting. I don't think you know. People are passionate about the guns, passionate about lots of stuff. So no cussing, no spitting inside, and no shooting. All right. Yes, tobacco-free campus. So no tobacco. All right. Next slide. All right. So the individual expectations. Yeah, pressure creates time. You know, we want creative abrasion. That's what we're kind of, I work for an organization, that's what we call it. That's basically that steel sharpens steel. Okay, so the best ideas bring out the best ideas. Right? So that's what we want to do. Be comfortable sharing. Y'all came here for a reason, not just to get away. You know, we can all kind of go out and enjoy, especially this time of year. We can all get out, enjoy ourselves, recreate with our loved ones and friends and all the rest of that. But you're here, chose to be here. So let's get the most out of it, right? So be engaged. All right. Teams that feel comfortable sharing produce 25% more ideas, 45% more innovative. That's amazing, right? So let's share. Let's make sure that we do that. Right? Now we're going to go to a word cloud. Adam's going to capture some things. What do you all think consensus means? Just words. Just give me words. Adam's going to capture it.
Just pull everywhere.
Yeah, go everywhere.
It's our
So you
chance
have
to
go
try
pull.
pull everywhere,
Yes.
give it a shot.
So pull it up. We're gonna have a little quiz too, but pull up, poll everywhere on your phones.
Cadence C028,
Yeah,
all lowercase.
so passwords up here, over there.
Okay.
And here. So it's Cadence C. You know what?
It's still saying waiting for the vote.
Yeah, he hasn't started yet.
Yeah, he hasn't started. He has initiated.
There you go.
So here we go.
Just type it in and it should show up.
Yeah, so just type in words, what you think consensus means, just type, and it'll start popping up. There you go.
There's a, Pull Everywhere also has a website. Go to the website, you can enter the same thing in. Website.
So this is twofold. Okay, reason we're asking you to do this is one, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to try to get some consensus on some things, what we're gonna chase after for this 2023 legislative session. And all yeah, very good. Very nice.
Yeah.
All of those things, no one's far off. No one's far off at all. And that's good. That's a very good thing. I feel like some of you are cheating, like you're probably looking it up, like Google or something. These are definitely, that's awesome. All right, so now we'll go to how Webster defines it. And that's what we'll use as our foundational definition of consensus throughout this these sessions. All right. So again, I feel like some of you cheated, but consensus, this is per Webster, not myself. It's a general agreement. The judgment arrived at by most of those concerned. So it's not, doesn't have to be unanimous, most of those concerned. group solidarity, and sentiment and belief. Now, Steve had a good way of kind of bringing this together as we were preparing for this. He said, look, you don't, maybe one of those things where, like I use the example about dinner at home, you don't have to agree 100%. You say, okay, well, I'm okay with that. I don't want that tonight, but I'm okay with it. And that's the same thing with consensus. It's like, can you live with it? You know, in support of, we're all in this together. This is one state, you know, it's not, you know, unlike South Carolina and North Carolina, in North and South Dakota, this is one state, one Montana. We're in this together. So it's group solidarity, sentiment, and belief. Okay. So that's how it's defined, and that's how we're gonna go. Okay, we're gonna work with consensus as it's defined by Webster. All right, now we're gonna take a quiz. So on poll everywhere, same app that you have on your phone. Adam's gonna launch this quiz. You're very slow.
Well, it's a competition, I think, right?
So, yeah.
The quicker you answer, the more points you get. And obviously, if you're correct, you get more points. And then it'll rank you 20 seconds per question. And it'll rank you, you'll each get points, and at the end, we'll see who the winner is. You get a hat. Or a fan. Yeah. Or a Montana Next Generation Report. Your choice.
All right. Here we go. So answer on your phones. There we go. So some people are new, so that's why we have this question. What does MEDA stand for? What does it mean?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
It just kicked a bunch of us out. Just letting you know, like, we're not participating.
Kicked you out.
I'm not so hurt.
I like how competitive you guys are. That's awesome.
Are you back? Are you back in now?
I'll give you 5 extra points just for being quiet.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Are you back in now? Yeah.
I know.
All right. Next question. So which one is not? We're testing you out. See if you read this thing. How familiar you are.
Oh, no, the call. No.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fine. So what happened to? Oh, okay, oh, yeah.
Where's Austin? Hey, I'm claiming the prize. Claiming the prize.
I think first and 12th grade class, way to go.
Good job. Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Now we're going to transition into, we sent out a survey as a homework for this event. So Ben's going to walk us through some of those results.
So, I'm Ben, happy to be here too, although I'm not a Montanan, I really appreciate the energy and passion you have for your state. Just happy to be a part of it, supporting Jermaine, and I'm here just to give him a break and let him drink some water and coffee, basically. So I'm here to talk a little bit about a survey. So part of this is like, we didn't know y'all at all, so we sent a survey out to kind of like, who are these people?
And we can't hear, sorry.
Is this better? No, I don't.
Oh, no.
Oh, battery. Hold on. Oh.
You're all doing fantastic though on
No,
our
I'm gonna have
text.
to project here. Well, it's loud back there because of the fans. Is that better? That's really awkward for me to talk like this. So we just wanted to get to know y'all a little bit. Like, who are these people that we're gonna be dealing with? What do they think about themselves? And also kind of coming out of COVID, hopefully learn a bit more about yourselves. You have new members. You are coming out of a kind of reconvening, kind of reconnecting. So maybe just reflecting a little bit back to you guys about yourselves. So we ask a bunch of questions just kind of generally about the report. We ask you some culture questions to kind of get a sense of how you think about your feedback, how you connect your purpose to your job. We, in talking with some of the executive members, we kind of learned that there's some divides that are just natural. So we wanted to kind of just address those. We also learned in the survey that people are kind of tired of these divides. They want to get past them and get over them. So just kind of walking through a little bit about yourselves and how you identify east, west, rural, both. How do you connect? So just walking a little bit through who you are. Adam. Next. So this top bar there is meant to show how impactful did you think that the report was? So a 1 score, that is people who didn't read it. So people who did read it, the lowest score they could do was a 2. And so the average score was about a 5.5. It's okay, folks. The average score, but it's broken out by how people identify. If you want to look at that, if that's interesting to you. But overall, some people thought that it was extremely impactful. Some people thought that it was kind of, less impactful. So the standard deviation for those math geeks out there was about 2.5, which means the spread was pretty wide, especially for only a 10-point scale. So there was a lot of people who thought, while it was average, generally it was a positive report to have done. So this is what you think about yourselves. Anyone have any thoughts or comments or reflections or outbursts about the impact that the report had that they want to contribute?
Sorry.
Does that work? No outbursts. Okay, great. Is this better? So the 5 policy areas, people scored them. I remember asking the survey, it was ranked a 1-star to 5-star. And so these were how you ranked it. So during the survey or the quiz we just took, no one said that no one said that. Has this become a thing, Chase?
Do your best. Put it out.
Hello, is this done? I have to hit the button. Yes, so this I ranked the policy areas that the study, which ones were important to you. So tourism, as kind of the last quiz indicated, that people said tourism was the thing that was not on the report. Well, it wasn't on the report, and also it was the least kind of interesting policy area. Now, we're happy to share all the results in full transparency with whatever we can download the report and share that. We plan on doing that. This is just kind of meant to be a high level summary, obviously, so we can give every question answered for those who are really interested in seeing what the survey results were in great detail. We also asked everyone to choose 3 of the biggest challenges facing their area, and these are the summarized results from those. Just let everyone kind of react here. Normally, I'd expect a little bit more feedback at this point. What is everyone thinking? Are these challenges, do they seem right? I mean, there's kind of 3 tiers you can see here. This, the top 2 are pretty clear what the top 2 challenges are. They're pretty consistent. There's another tier in that kind of 30% range. There's 3 of them there, then a couple in that mid-teen. So are those consistent? Are those what you thought would be happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we only asked what was on the survey, or sorry, in the report. Or is there anything else that's a challenge that was not on the report that you couldn't have voted on? We didn't ask, we didn't have an open-ended question here, right? So anything that you think is a top challenge is facing all of Montana or facing your area that was not mentioned here that we should at least have considered moving forward over the next day and a half.
Right.
So for those, broadband was the question, because where's broadband fit? Affordable housing was another one.
It's number 4.
Number 2, housing. So broadband seems to be one that's not included here, is that right?
Aging infrastructure.
Oh, aging infrastructure might include broadband for people? Maybe. Water was the point that was brought up. Where does water fit?
So I think some of the aging infrastructure doesn't really fit. We have a lack of infrastructure. So aging in some communities, broadband is a lack of something. I think that might be part of it.
Yeah, so for those who didn't hear, the comment was aging infrastructure implies that it exists. She's saying that there is infrastructure that does not exist that is needed. So rest assured, Adam's capturing this on our virtual board, and we'll bring it up later. So great thoughts. Any other high-level challenges? Surprises?
Do you think tourism should be on there?
Tourism. What do y'all think?
As in too much.
Too much tourism.
I mean, as an industry though, we're seeing so much workforce shortage that it's really impacting tourism and the experience when they come to our communities, so.
Yeah, so for those who didn't hear, it was a comment around the lack of workforce is making people's tourism experience less than impactful. Maybe Montana's not showing up as well as it would like to.
I just have a comment on perhaps the reason tourism didn't show up as a priority. Infrastructure and set organizations that do tourism. They're separate from a lot of the economic development. A lot of them are not members of MEDA, so they weren't really involved.
Yeah, great. No, so there's a whole different infrastructure set up for tourism that is not necessarily associated with MEDA, isn't it?
To build on that, in the entire next gen report, they actually pointed out that one of the things, the only sort of area of economic development where the state has a across the board strategies executed on a statewide level is tourism. And then all of these other things we're talking about doesn't have that strategy.
So tourism has a statewide strategy that's being executed, whereas some of these other things do not.
What about communities who can't handle the people coming in? Like communities who can't grow with people coming in?
So growth issues. Is that included on the challenges that were listed here?
Yeah.
Managing population,
So for the client.
growth or decline, specifically growth, I guess. Are there communities experiencing rapid declination of population? Is that a challenge? Okay. Yeah, now let's look at the opportunities as y'all run through them. So this one's a bit more spread evenly until there's about 5 or 6 that are all about the same kind of response rate. So people is a bit more broad in what people thought of opportunities. So same thing here. What was being this report was done over a year ago, about a year ago. So what's come up in the last year that is an opportunity for your area or all of Montana that might not be included here? Yeah, so he was just saying that value added agriculture is not included on the list. That was a surprise.
I just assumed all that was included in economic diversification in this request. It was a frustrating survey for me because we were locked in, we couldn't put comments in.
So the agriculture will be logged in or included in the economic diversity development. First one, right? Oh, yes, ma'am.
An opportunity that I don't think was on our radar a year ago is the influx of federal money for infrastructure that might address some of those challenges.
And so the influx of federal money for infrastructure that might address some of the challenges. Is that something that everyone kind of recognizes as an opportunity? Yes. Good. So,
I think it's a current opportunity, but it's not something sustainable for 20 years, but it may impact some of those activities that we do longer term with full trust.
yeah, thank you. So it's a short-term opportunity to be a tactic as opposed to a strategy, relying on that for 20+ years. Yes, sir.
I think something that became really evident that's sort of an opportunity is the intersection of these issues this last year of how just addressing them as one singular thing isn't going to work. That there's that intersection of community and economic development and support and infrastructure. Those things are more than ever now become really evident that they have to be done sort of as a common vision.
So even though the opportunities are identified uniquely, the solutions or the actions around this are going to be integrated across several opportunities.
They should be.
They should be.
Okay.
Oh, I just one more person, but opportunities for growth have increased as well. That's pretty good.
Yeah, thank you.
Workshops and things that to the extent they are.
So that's remote learning, not just remote working.
Also has helped colleges getting more FTEs or people going to schools.
So remote has helped colleges increase their population attendance. Oh, it's certainly.
I mean, this is sort of what Steve was talking about earlier, but I think this ARPA money and the funding coming in as a result of COVID might be a once in a century opportunity It's sort of this really important catalytic opportunity decided to build the social and political infrastructure together. Actually, these prioritize things, collaborate, and things that which will access every year.
So a once in a lifetime opportunity to build communities. I think there's an interesting kind of opportunity for this particular next 6 months. The consensus building we're going through is you have a once in a lifetime opportunity, but you're also trying to think long term. So we're developing kind of how do you get ready for legislature 2023, but that's long term, plus long term goals of what MEDA is going. So there's a lot of things that have to be hashed through and worked out as far as. Yes, sorry.
I guess this is more of an observation, but it's interesting that workforce is presented as a top challenge, also as a top opportunity, but housing is not on the opportunity. I think that there is an opportunity to address housing, and it was an issue in some areas of Montana prior to COVID. So I think we can look at it as an opportunity and start to develop more affordable housing for our workforce as well.
So that was it's very good, thank you, but it was basically work housing is also an opportunity, not just a challenge. Sir.
So as the new business projection manager for the Montana Department of Commerce, right, Montana never really had a full-time dedicated effort on business attraction, engaging with site selectors, engaging with all the tech companies. But this is a huge opportunity to tell our story. Connect with consultants, and they're like, I never heard from anyone from Montana. No one has ever reached out, and I don't know the Montana story. So that was a huge opportunity for this state to build a story and get it promoted domestically as well as internationally.
And so it's a chance for Montana to tell its story, reach out more to businesses who are potentially looking for expansion growth. Okay, thank you. So that's that. And I think next was kind of some culture stuff. So there were several culture questions, and we just tried to kind of put them together in what we thought were some useful, and again, those results if you want, but just useful themes. We had a few questions that are at MEDA conferences. Are you able to focus and stay attentive on one subject matter? So generally, people are very positive about the ability to focus and stay on task. Very few people actually were generally negative about that. So the general kind of consensus was everyone's generally positive about staying on task. So let's hope we can do that this week. Respect. There were a few questions about, I'm treated fairly. I've treated others fairly. So the level of respect in this, well, it's over 50%. There was about 40% that were neutral. So two things just to kind of be aware of, this is reflecting back on you, about 40%, it's about 50-50 on your level of respect. Feeling respected, feeling heard, being listened to, those types of questions. Yes, ma'am.
I would suspect some of the neutrality is that there's so many places that don't have it.
Yes. That's a very good point, thank you. But ironically, feedback was one of the really strong points that came out loud and clear. We asked two questions around feedback. One was, I value the feedback I receive from fellow MEDA members, and also I feel like the feedback I give is valued. Those are the two questions, and huge response. So it's very clear that when you do interact, you get feedback from your peers, it is valued and is seen as valuable. So that honestly is one of the craziest high scores that any time I've ever done this type of survey before. Usually the feedback part in the office setting, it's like, he says stuff to me, but I don't really care. You guys really value the feedback. So that's good. I mean, that's a really positive thing to build. Sorry, Bob. So communication effectiveness. Everyone sees the communication as being positive. This is kind of like how MEDA is communicating itself. Still room for growth there, but I think that generally some of the comments were for Gloria, who does an amazing job communicating with everyone. So those are the long form comments, but communication within MEDA seems very positive. Then the connection to purpose, again, really high response rate compared to like going into industry. So we asked a few questions around, do people feel like the work they do is connected with the purpose of the organization? So what's great about MEDA is you guys have a strong connection. You feel like, hey, MEDA is this organization who has a purpose. The work that I do is aligned with that purpose. So while it's still very high, there's still kind of some neutral people. So there's still room for growth there. That could be 100%. There's no reason that can't be 100%. Close to 100%. But it's still very high for most organizations. You know, if you're working in a refinery, people have a harder time connecting with the purpose sometimes, you know, or for a large oil and gas company. And, you know, I like it now, good job. So sometimes there's no connection, personal connection. It seems to be a really strong personal connection with what you do, the vision of the organization. So that's, again, so I would say our general kind of assessment of your culture is very positive. You think very highly of yourself and your peers. You really value each other in your kind of feedback. And also you connect strongly with what the organization is meant to do. That's generally a hugely positive kind of reflection upon yourselves. So there's a lot of questions here. I don't want to be up here lecturing about yourself. I just want to kind of just allow you guys to think about this, any comments about what you think your culture is and opportunities for improvement or things that you're really proud of about just how you interact in the culture of what you do. Anyone have any thoughts?
Well, I think we bring hope and opportunity to the people who need it most.
Hope and opportunity. I could be very patient with you.
I think a lot of the neutrality that is like shown, I think is mostly because a lot of people are very new to MEDA and don't understand, like when they're looking at the questions, like maybe they didn't feel like they were a part of MEDA, so they can click answer it, but now if they're here, that response probably is much more different. Again.
Great answer.
Awesome.
We're awesome. Great. But so remember, culture is what you consistently do. And it shows up in how you interact with people. It shows up in the language you use with each other. So culture is, this is your chance to build culture. I mean, Zoom is not imperfect, but this is your chance to build culture. If you go out and engage with the people, how you engage them, what language you use, how you do your meetings, how much respect you show for each other, this is your culture. So it's going to show up here, and it starts today, or continues today, or reconnects today, or reconnects this week. Yeah, next time, sorry. All right. So this was how many hours a week do you spend interacting with your MEDA colleagues? And we broke it out. This is broken out based on people's response to, I know most members of MEDA by name, title, and something about them. So as you can see, they agree and strongly agree. People who agree and strongly agree that they know people's names, they know what they do, and they know something about them, spend a lot more time with people who was with their fellow members. So that kind of just says, the more people I know, the more time I spend with them. People who strongly disagree, so these are the people I'm guessing who don't know a lot of people, or they spend a lot of time with the people they do know. So that could indicate silos, it could indicate just maybe insular groups doing certain things. So there's just, there's an interesting kind of seeing that people who don't really know a lot of people still spend a lot of time with MEDA members. So I'm not sure what to say about that, but there's the thoughts on this. I don't know what it should be like. I mean, how many hours a week do you guys think you should be spending with each other across groups or across regions? I know everyone kind of has their own business and they have their own regions and what they're doing, but is there a target in anyone's mind? Like, how much should we be interacting? 0? Yes, sir.
I think the combination of COVID as well as this project itself has increased these numbers. Like I bet if you did this poll a couple years ago, these numbers wouldn't have been as high, but everyone's comfortable with Zoom now and we're interacting a heck of a lot more because of it, which to me is a very good thing.
Yeah, so it's improved over the years. Zoom's helped. Any other thoughts? How many hours should we? Oh, sorry.
No, I would echo Joe's comment of like, we have more reason and purpose to be working together more, and that's partly why we're meeting today, is to kind of help find that. So I think it has been a big increase because there's more relevancy and more action on our part, and the pandemic certainly increased that this past year.
Is there anyone out there who wants to spend less time? Like, hey, that's too much. Now, these numbers should be lower. Anyone out there who thinks we're putting too little or too much time together?
It's not the amount of time, it's the effectiveness of the time. And I think we have to change the way we operate so that our time invested together can be more productive.
So not the amount of time, but the effectiveness of that time. Thoughts on that?
I think certain, so the economic development and like the SVDC, we partner with different people and we talk to different people, so we're not all talking with, all the people all the time, but we have certain people we interact with more than others. So
people have a normal routine.
Different groups.
Yeah. Certainly.
Well, as someone that is new and from a very rural community, talking about the effectiveness of time, I found it kind of frustrating. I don't mean to throw over an here, right? But I found it frustrating because the rural versus urban, the problems may be the same, but the situations are not. And what's causing these issues are not the same. So I really struggled with the relevance of these conversations because the situations that they were talking about largely focused on the more urban areas. And I just kind of found myself zoning out.
Thanks. And last comment, yes, ma'am.
I just think it's a balance. I think some of us are really struggling to put the time in that MEDA needs to keep our networks going and stuff like that. And our workload. I don't know about everybody else, but our workload is overwhelming right now. And so these hours, though I agree they're important and stuff, I think we're going to see people like having issues, and MEDA probably is going to be the one that left if we have our day jobs.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm talking to y'all last night about happy hour. Everyone seems to be very, very busy right now. So just to reflect that, so some of these hours actually might go down. It's just the general release for. So quick snapshot of your culture, answers about yourself, happy to share all the details. But now we go to break, sponsored by Prospera. It's next door, and back here at 10:15. Thank you all very much. What else needs to be? So generally thinking, as we think broadly, we try and get people to think very differently about how they would approach a problem using these three methodologies. And then, so we try and put things in place, a timeline in place, right? That's going to say when are we going to do these things? And so in order to do that, you have to make sure that you're forcing deadlines on yourself. So the deadlines is kind of like forces time to speed up a little bit. So it's like, hey, I need a deadline. I can't really do anything without a deadline. It's a very common thing. It's going to stand right here. So sorry, it's a little bit annoying. I'm sure it's for all we do, but thank you for patience. But I mean, deadlines force people to do things. So you have to force yourself to do things and have accomplishments and milestones along the way. And then you want to test how you're doing along the way. So not just on the deadlines, but are we getting the results that we expect? So that's kind of like the preparation step. If you're going to run a marathon, you have to go run, you want to run it in 8-minute miles, you have to go try 1 mile. Can I run 1 mile, 8 minutes? Can I run 2, 10? So you have to test yourself along the way. And so this process, we call the readiness process, I think that's it. That helps you achieve your state of being ready. So if it's it, Adam, our goal now is to kind of use this framework to help you guys frame what you're doing as a project via this kind of readiness stage gate in this version.
Right. Earlier we normally start everything in kind of a safety moment. So we neglected to recognize the trip hazard and stuff like that in here, like the cord is taped down here, this rug here that I almost busted it on during the break. So that's a trip hazard. And to the best of our knowledge, there are no drills or anything like that scheduled for today. So if you hear an alarm, it's real. So, you know, so again, it's common sense, but you know, common sense ain't that common anymore. So if you hear an alarm, let's speedily proceed out of the exit here and out into the common area, and we'll gather out there. Gloria probably has a roster of folks here, so we can take a muster and that kind of stuff. So again, we're used to working in some very volatile environments where this stuff is very real. So it's important, and we don't want to, you know, we don't want anyone getting left behind if there is an issue. So that's just, I had to go back and say that. As it pertains to this, you know, we do look at things, we're normally working on projects. And projects typically have stage gate. They have a methodology, a framework of accomplishing a goal, right? And as been alluded to, what you all are undertaking as a group is a very big and important project. I don't know that the greater audience kind of perceives it that way, but that's how we perceive it. And so we wanted to share some of our thoughts with you on that. So this is the stage gate process that we're looking at. You know, it shows us the journey that, you know, the ground that you guys have covered already, you know, starting with August 2020, fall of 2020, and here we are in June, right? We're getting together, we've synthesized recommendations. We're going to, in some ways, we're going to analyze, pull certain bits out of the report, because we understand that the report maybe it wasn't all inclusive, right? It didn't touch everything that it needed to, or it didn't touch everyone that it needed to touch. So we're going to do some of that right here, right now, over the course of the next day and a half. And then in the fall, where it's going. So it shows us the journey that's in front. Where we are right now, the journey that's in front. So the board is going to accept the priority plan. And obviously, for that priority plan to be accepted, it has to be created. Okay, so we have to kind of understand that. And we're going to connect these strategies and objectives, communicate the effectiveness of it. So whatever the plan is, that plan needs to be shared with the collective. Okay, and because we're going to have consensus around it. Spring of 2020, the executive team will finalize the strategy and recommendations. Themes on high performance behaviors, preparedness, and awareness. And then January 2023, the legislative session. That's the end goal. That's what this is all about. That's the pin on the map. So that represents where this thing is headed. Okay, and then, you know, and hopefully when that legislative session occurs, this group's interests as a whole are very well represented and communicated. And I'm guessing you're trying to get money, trying to get things passed, and those things are accomplished. Okay? And everyone in this room should feel, once that occurs, everyone in this room should feel really proud of the efforts to go into that. Okay? So that's the stage gate process. So next, we're going to, the thoughts on this process, because this is a little bit different of a frame. So thoughts on the process, looking at where we've been, looking at where we are, and where we're going. Any thoughts on that? You look like you have something.
Well, so we have a very strong governor who's made the economy his priority. So is there a separate process for engaging with the administration? Because there's a lot we can accomplish quicker. So this seems to put all our eggs in the legislature. The time frame for working with the administration, they're seeking ideas right now. And there's a lot that they could do administratively to achieve some of our goals. I'm wondering how that fits in with this stage gate timeframe.
Well, that's a good topic. I would say that, again, for there to be a priority plan, that would happen between now. So like the engagement with the governor and the governor's office, I don't know if they have a representative here, I don't know. So I don't know everyone, but I'm sure they'll be made aware of what comes out of this. And that process, that engagement with the governor's office should occur after here, but before we get to the fall. So so you're right, maybe there is a block in here that's reaching out to those folks, embracing what they, helping them to embrace what comes out of this. So it's two ways, right? It has to be, I think, for the folks in this room to really feel good about what you're accomplishing together and to feel like you're kind of in lockstep with the governor's office and the initiatives coming out of the governor's office, which is new, because when this started over here, all of this, he wasn't there, right? He was put into place here, the new governor. So when this journey started, Mr. Gianforte wasn't a part of it. So his initiatives, his group, right, and all of his constituents, all of the people of his team, all of their vision and their ideas and their thoughts, they were not incorporated, not intentionally, into the study. So some of the things that they're driving for, that are important to them, some of those things may be represented in the study, perhaps. But if so, it wasn't by design, right? It's by default because it wasn't there. So, and I don't know if this report's been shared with the governor's office. If not, it should be. I don't know if they read it, if they remember it, because it was shared with everyone here as well. But, you know, we have short memories sometimes, and we've all been through a lot, you know? We've been through a lot over the course of last year, but that would have happened between today of these sessions and the fall. To really, if I'm sure efforts are there. Efforts have been initiated already, but it's just the concentration on the outputs on today and these sessions, along with outputs of their efforts to come together. Again, we're all in it together. So we cannot do something. This group's effectiveness will be mitigated by the governor's objectives if you don't align. And that's just how it goes. So we need to make sure that alignment occurs. Right? And I don't know who's responsible for that. I don't. But someone in this room is responsible for it. If not, we need to make sure that that person is designated and that goes forward. Yeah. Other thoughts on this framework, on the stage gates? Kind of looking at it like a project as opposed to just something that we're doing. All right. Again, the more you participate, now I neglected to say this earlier too. This will be whatever you all make it. Right? The outputs of this, the outputs of what happens after this is what you make it. Right? It's not Jermaine's thing, it's not Ben's thing. We're not going to make it any when we're doing this. So you all's participation together, in this room, outside of this room, over the course of a day and a half and onward, dictate what happens with the staff to a great extent. So I encourage you to continue to actively try to make it great for everybody, as opposed to just we don't want to just go through the motions. You all, you know, as the young lady said earlier, you have other things. You're long on task and short on time. All of you, right? So if you're going to take the time to away from your families, away from your normal day-to-day responsibilities, to show up at an event like this, let's get the most out of it, right? And so oftentimes when I do these kinds of things, I say participation is a requirement, not a request, right? Because you're here, so you may as well get it done, you know, and we're sweating, so you may as well earn it, right? So yeah, the next, so now we're going to take, to throw out the comments on this, now we're going to take another poll everywhere thing. Who had problems with that, first of all? Because I understand people have problems, so Cadence C 028, not Cadence C 028. Right?
I don't know if others had, it wouldn't go through, it just like was spinning and I think there might be too many people on internet, that kind of stuff.
There's a message you can text. When you guys open it, there should be a thing that says like text this and you can respond.
All right,
Don't use the Wi-Fi.
okay. So when we look at readiness, we're evaluating, we want to know how aware and how prepared. Those are the two things that we measure. So on our y-axis, we measure awareness and then preparedness on the x. So there we go. So on a scale of 1 to 10, that's the. All right. All right, so 1 to 9. So on a scale of 1 to 9, how aware are you of what needs to be done to prepare for the 2023 legislative session? I should be voting. Now we should be scoring preparedness. So we also need to score preparedness, but I don't know if the rules. What's happening?
So anyways, we have a question. So you can do that. Don't have that.
There's 2 questions, right, everyone?
Yeah. So what we want to know now, while Adam's tallying everything in the background. Why did you, I don't want to know what you scored. That would be, I don't think anyone wants to know that, but why did you score what you scored? Why did you score your awareness where you scored it? Why did you score preparedness where you scored that? And you don't have to say, I scored a 6 or a 4 or a 3. Just communicate with your colleagues here what your thoughts are around how aware and prepared you are as a group. So, okay. Rick, I know you have some thoughts.
Well, we're not fully prepared right now, right? We got work to do to come up with our strategy and all of that. And so, you know, I mean, it would be probably incorrect to be at a 9 for most people. Some people have a good idea of what it might be, but again, from a consensus perspective, we need to work to bring that together, and then we can all be prepared to move forward. Is that fair?
What about awareness? How aware do you think? You don't have to give it a number, but awareness, you think collectively folks are as aware as we need to be to do what needs to be done?
I think generally, yes. I think there's a little work to be done. More at a broad level. I think there's a subset within the organization that has good awareness. And then I think, again, we have to draw on the opinions of the collective group to move forward.
Let's hear from maybe one of the new members.
Hi, Sean Mcguire, rookie. I picked a 3. I'll go ahead and say my score because I'm confused about what the nuts and bolts of this are going to look like. And as someone who's new to economic development, is this the sort of thing where we just decide what it is we want to do and then start putting together like a checklist or a hit list of people to talk to influence in Helena? Or I guess I'm not on an administrative level. I'm not sure how that, what that amounts to. Besides, we talk about a year, then we meet up 2 years later and do the thing and say something to somebody.
Yeah, one of the veterans maybe can maybe share with the room. Yes, Sarah.
Since Sean works with me now, he will be incredibly well versed by the time the end of the summer this year. I think there are a lot of people who do sports and based upon their geographic area and what they do are a lot more engaged and follow that completely compared to others. I'm one of those people. And you kind of look at what actually made it through this time, the change in administration and the direction they're going. So you can be very aware of what's going on and you can jump in right now if absolutely needed if something came up, not only on the state level, but if you watch national news too. So mine were higher, but I have a lot of those people going to hell and on my board as well.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of the groups are very flexible as issues come up that we drop everything and react to a certain cause or a matter or something like that. So at least a core group.
Okay.
Flexibility.
Flexibility. Good. Other.
New member.
Yeah, the new members, what are your thoughts on how aware are you of what needs to happen? Got a lot of hands earlier, so and I'm patient too. Very.
I think, speaking as one of the very new members, this kind of work takes time to build capacity and build your knowledge. Most of us are drinking from a fire hose and catching what we can and missing a lot of it. So, but this big group that's of beginners that's come in all at the same time. Even a year, having a year or so under our belts. But as far as preparedness, there's some capacity that.
Right. Capacity had to be built for preparedness, and new individuals have a sense of kind of drinking from a fire hose. That's natural.
We're just now sorting out the alphabet soup.
Yeah, the alphabet soup. And I'm guessing that it's compounded, right? It's magnified by as a state, as a nation, as a world to some extent. It's just kind of keeping our heads out, just opening the door after the global pandemic. That couldn't have helped. I mean, maybe it gave a little bit of time to flatten some learning curves, but that's different than this. That's learning curves associated with the jobs, learning curves associated with the group of MEDA and what MEDA's vision and all that, what all of that's about. But we're just kind of getting started, just restarting. And the challenges abound for everybody. Again, one of the things Brett said or pointed to earlier is, that alignment. That's a challenge. I don't know how effectively you can align with the newly elected governor's office and their initiatives over Zoom. You know, we all had to try. You know, we all put our efforts there. We hit the button, we turned on our videos, we muted when we needed to mute. But what was that engagement like? You know, I will speak for myself. I don't think that I've had a Zoom call that I was as engaged, that I felt like I was as into whatever the topic was, the conversation, as I would have been had we been face to face. That's me personally. I don't know about you all if you felt the same way, but it's kind of hard to feel it, right? You don't get the body language, you don't get those cues that we all learned from a communication perspective from the time that we were in kindergarten until now. You miss those things. So now we kind of have to learn how to read differently, read individuals, read people, read the room, the Zoom room. How do you do that? You know, it didn't come with instructions. You know, no one said, you know, like it just didn't. We all had to kind of figure it out. So I would dare say that that's kind of slow progress. I don't think it necessarily would have sped things up. I think it may have been a little bit of a roadblock for some of this. Okay? So some of the awareness and the preparedness. And where's the group normally? I'll go back. So for some of the rookies, I consider myself to be one as well. In the normal circumstances, no pandemic, you know, like this far out, this many months out of the legislative session, where are things normal? Are you normally more prepared, more aware, more ready, or is this about how it normally works? I'm asking the veterans here. Where are we now versus where we looked at the stage gate thing? Where are we now versus where we normally are in years past?
I'll jump in. We're further along than in my opinion. I think we're further along. We're working on it. What I see is a lot of us veterans. I look around the room and I don't know. I know less than half, which is a wonderful thing. So I think that's where my level of awareness is down. Is I look around and I think we have so much work to do to get everybody up to speed and to know what we're doing. And then it's all changed. And so we're feeling, how can we mentor, or at least I am, how can I help mentor the people coming up behind us when I'm not even sure what the goal is right now, because everything's changed. We have new programs, we have new directors. Everything is just this unknown kind of chaos. But I still think we're more prepared overall because we're talking about it. We're here, we're doing it.
And I think a big part of it too is that we need to be, like in the past years, we're more reactionary from a legislative standpoint, like reacting to things that are coming at us. And I think there's been a lot of why the next study was done and what we're pushing for is to try and be proactive. So it's taking a step forward to say, as MEDA, what are we going to be proactive on and work on over the next 2 years that can be effective? Because I think in this session, a lot of it was more reaction.
Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am.
Well, the other thing that makes it difficult is that we haven't actually done this for 20 years. We're talking about doing some very innovative things. We have, you know, we're talking about making a lot of change. And when you're innovating, you by definition, you don't always have a roadmap with it. So even people who've been doing it for a while might not have a totally clear idea of how we're going to get from point A to point B. Certainly, if you've got a bunch of new people, which is great. I don't know that the people who've been doing it for a while know any more, or if they do, it would be great to hear them speak up and say, this is how I see where we should be going.
Right. This is what this is for. You know, so some of those folks, if you have that perspective, please share it. I think you know, you're quite certain about where we need to be going, how we need to get there. Share. Please. Yes, ma'am.
I guess I would also
offer up that it seems to me that every legislative session, to some extent, we all are engaged in this process of, and I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, sort of like really kind of educating legislators to some extent, right? About what economic development is and how it can be effective and how we do it. And I'm not saying, of course, there are some legislators that totally get that, but most people in the general population don't understand exactly how economic development works. So to that end, I'm very pleased that we're undertaking this intentional effort to get some messaging together about our role, and also, and this is the part that I don't mean to give a hand grenade, but I think MEDA's approach in years past, it seems to me organizationally, is like, we're all such nice people that we don't ever want to prioritize asks and say, well, so we sort of default to all economic development programs are awesome and you should support them all, legislators, because that's not going to happen. That doesn't happen. So I'm really glad that we're trying to come to some consensus about those priority programs and those things that we think can be tools that we need to be transformative for the state. So good for us. I hope you do well.
So this is new, different? What's going on now is different than what normally happens. Is that what did I understand that?
Yeah, we're trying to prioritize. You can't just keep saying it's all good, don't cut any of it, right? You can't do that.
And what happens when, in the past, when you say it's all good, don't cut any of it, what happens?
It just gets cynical and cutlery, right? Or they move money from this pool to the other one without actually maybe having those conversations that would help them to determine, you know, if you do that, here's what's going to happen. Anyway, I'm just glad we're doing that.
Well, we're educated to an extent. You know, I'm learning. You know, the new people are learning. You know, when that happens, what's the sentiment of this group when that happens? This group pushes everything, everything's good, and something gets cut, or they just kind of move money from one pocket to the other. How does that make you all feel about your efforts? How in the past, how did it make you feel?
Complacent.
Could you explain what complacent?
Yeah, I was reading this journal the other day about the United States has gotten complacent in science and engineering. Really just relying upon where we had been instead of innovating toward where things are headed. I think from an economic development standpoint, I think we got into a session and things kind of happened to us. We responded to them generally good, never really great. It really wasn't necessarily on our own initiative. That's why we wanted to do this. We wanted to initiate our own innovation, our own change, and influence policy. I think we all elected a new governor, regardless of how we voted. We have a new governor. And to be honest with you, I think that's a catalyst for us to step up and start being more aggressive about talking about our expectations, our need at a community level. Because they're clearly going to go in a different direction. How are we going to be an effective part of also leading in that space? And frankly, I don't mean offense by this, but many of this audience has been in the business of serving their community for years and decades, and they understand what's going on the ground. Our voice needs to be relevant in that broader policy conversation more than it ever has been. Notwithstanding a new administration, they ought to see us as the experts in actually getting crap done economically in the state of Montana. So where I scored my readiness was, I know what my expectations are. I don't have clarity on everybody else's. So I may be prepared, but I want to be more aware so that all of that's in the mix. I understand, and out of that we can draw some common clarity, common awareness, and then all be prepared at the same level.
Appreciate that. You said something on
expert at giving economic crowd done.
So no, but seriously, Steve said something that's really, really important. That MEDA needs to be perceived and received as the experts on economic development in the state of Montana. How do we make that happen? Because that's a great vision. It's a great thing for where you want to go. So who needs to be in the room if they're not here now? Who do we need to be talking to? What does that conversation need to entail? And how many times do we have to have in order to position this group where it needs to be on the state level to be those economic experts? Those are things that I task you all to think about, because that's what I think MEDA should be. And I've never heard of it before June, but when I received the RFP from Susie at Prospera, so thank you for that, Susie. But how do you position yourself then?
So Jermaine, you have in the matrix there, you have the word lucky.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys remember this. I had a coach that said, luck is what happens when preparation is opportunity.
Yeah.
And then you really don't define it as luck because you've been a part of it. So I think the opportunity is here. The needs in our state are tremendous. Needs are disguised as opportunities. So now's really our time. We do our homework, come together around some and they don't have to all, we're not gonna have a list of 25 things we're gonna agree on. We may only agree on 2. But if we're prepared to do that work, identify those 2 things, I think the opportunity is there.
I was just gonna say for the people who are newer to economic development, the programs that we have now were created 20 years ago. And so that was part of the drive to readdress them, because the change that we're seeing is happening very rapidly, and the velocity of that change is speeding up as well. And so what we're doing here needs to address what's happening in our world today. And that was part of the impetus for doing this, which also makes it hard because we don't maybe necessarily know how that change, where that change is taking us. Or in a pandemic. So it would be odd if we all thought we knew exactly where we were going.
I was just going to echo what Brigitte was talking about on, when we're coming to these legislators and saying we support these economic development programs across the board, we're almost removing ourselves from that conversation because we're not being seen as the experts at that point. We just, anything that's good, we want to be a part of, but we need to be those experts for those legislators on. Yeah, I think anybody in the business world would see that, yes, these economic development tools are important, but there's going to have to be cuts, so we need to be at that table and not just have a blanket statement of we support all economic development programs.
Understood. So it's gathering, it's collecting the economic development initiatives statewide, synthesizing it a bit, putting forth the thought to say, here's where we're going to push forward, however many of those are, whether it's 2 or it's 10, but it's realistic, but then not stopping. And I don't know that this group does this, but this plays lots of individuals. Don't stop short. I encourage you all not to stop short. Include why in your dialogue with the greater legislative bodies and all those folks who are going to pass this to, basically, who you're going to count on to make these things happen that this group wants to happen. They have to understand why. If you stop short, the chances and the likelihood that it won't be followed up on to the level that this group thinks it warrants increases. Why you're going for those things, why you're not going for the other things, why it's important, who's going to be affected by it, all those things. Make sure that you include that in the story to help arm these other individuals with the information that they need to push it as hard as they need to, and keep pushing it until it gets where it needs to go. And that's the goal.
I think that why is really important too, to raise the priority of economic development, because economic development has been low on the priority lists in the state, I believe. So raising the priority level a little bit every year, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. How do we do that? Right.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was kind of tracking on the same thought. First of all, I don't think we've been ineffective at all. I think that they're pretty effective getting these programs done. It's not to anybody's level of satisfaction, unfortunately, but they've been pretty successful. I think what happens though is that when there's a legislative session, everybody shows up and they show up in mass with their piece of legislation, funding for some programs. What happens is the legislators look at them as a constituency for the program. And so they see constituents day in and day out. And some of them are in economic development, some of them are in health, some of them are subjects all across. And they start to see people testifying as constituents of the programs or that amount of money. So they kind of bastardize thing in their own head, thinking, okay, this really isn't for the state of Montana, this is for that organization of these folks. You see, there's kind of a tendency to think that. So I think following up on the why, I think it really goes back to what problems or what opportunities are these programs addressing? So why do we even go to fight for it? So it's the why thing. And if we don't really lead this why, then it allows them to bastardize it to become, oh, it's just money for your agency. So I think that's part of it. But I think also, innovatively and out of the box is that we really need to, I think, take some time to think about what are the major things that are facing Montana that are related to some way or another to economic development. What is it that we think we need to tackle? And I think, somebody said, but also, I don't know, I'm reading a lot of articles that says, we're not going to go back to the regular in a lot of ways. Complaints is one. And I don't know that, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just reading articles about that kind of thing. I don't know if it's just journalists trying to pitch it. Right. Maybe we will go back exactly where we were, but I'm guessing not. But a lot of things have changed. And so I think this is a perfect time to actually think about what is it that's happened to the economy. Where should we be going? How can we take advantage of that? And a good example is a lot of people don't mind working from home and actually found it TV. So what are the ways that we can take advantage of that the benefit of this is an example. So I think to a certain extent, yeah, we've got some great programs, we're willing to fall on our sword for them. But also we should really be thinking in terms of that legislator's constituency is the people. It's the people. So that's how we need to think about where are we going with these programs. These programs are building Montana's economy by doing X, Y, and Z. Sir.
I just have a question. Good legislators are here.
So the question is, how many legislators are here?
We have to make MEDA a priority for legislators. That they attend these meetings, that they get involved with meetings. We have to figure out how do we make us in
expensive part of their conference stay.
You hear that? Okay. Just, you know, back here, yes, sir.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And I just want to use a real example that I think most of you might know about if you work on urban renewal or tax increment financing at the state level or at your local level. Every 2 years, those programs, in one way or another, are sort of peeled back, rendered less effective for a variety of reasons. And every year, every 2 years, some of us in this room, go up to the legislature and explain why urban renewal, why tax increment financing is so important to our communities, both rural and urban. And more urban communities. And what I've been experiencing the last couple of sessions was, I'm just throwing this out here for you to consider as we continue to seek relevancy in the state. You know, the Montana League of Cities, they have this whole TIF thing that they do every year, this roadshow. They go out, they educate, they inform, we talk about where the cities are and their work, their happens to be a session. When I look around this room at all the experts, you know, all these areas, particularly this one, in other areas of economic development, why does MEDA go around and educate and proclaim its expertise in certain areas and just sort of like force its way into that conversation? Maybe we don't start off like kicking the door down. Maybe we start off partnering with the league and sort of like get our name out there and sort of like become that group, that go-to group for economic development issues. So I just wanted to use a real example that is often tapped at the legislature for renewal now and offer up a way to perhaps slowly but surely build that relevancy, maybe in partnering with another state like that, where I know that the legislators attend their meetings and start to build that relevancy.
Well, being a new member, you know, I was looking at the legislative studies assigned, like, oh, let's see what they're studying, right? Just to see what their priorities are. And I was then thinking about all of our priorities. And I don't see a lot of overlap about what they're studying right now versus what we're trying to advocate for, making an observation. So there's a great opportunity that we do need to get on their radar. And they are studying, they're spending the time now. Now is the time because all of these legislative studies are preparing them for 2023.
I think there's a great opportunity for this organization to elevate itself. I think that it was communicated that that's a need, and to educate the legislators as to MEDA's importance and to MEDA's expertise, because experience has told me it's one thing and if nothing else. The excellence is always recognized. If it's not, if they know where the excellence is, that's always referred to and it's undeniable. So if the organization wants to be recognized for its excellence and its ability to push forward these things and be that body as the experts on economic development in this state, the opportunity is there. It's probably more ripe now than it's ever been, coming out of the pandemic and everything else. And with the influx of folks like me, you know, I moved it 2 years ago, but with the influx of folks like myself, is choosing to come to this state for one reason or another. Why? Is that being captured? You know, is it because it's cheaper? Because you don't have the traffic? And then what are we going to do with those people once they are here? How do we leverage what they're bringing in to the benefit of the whole? How do we leverage everything to the extent that MEDA needs to leverage it? All right, so with that, you guys saw this has been up here. You guys ready to score? You think of that so that means you got some work to do. That's okay. That's okay. We know that. That's why we're here. That's why we're here, because we want to be in that upper quadrant there. We want to be ready. We're not quite there yet, and that's all right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have, speaking of ready, we're going to have the representatives from the various committees come up and tell us what's been done since this study came out. We'll start with, and we got about 5 minutes each. You don't have to take all 5 if you don't want to. Please, again, excuse yourselves. Again, it's hot and everything else. So if you need refreshments, just excuse yourself. But we're gonna start with broadband. So we want to know like progress today. You know, I got the questions right here. So if you want to look at them, feel free to check this out. So we're gonna start with broadband, and we're gonna go with value-added ag, workforce and remote capital, legislative efforts, and then if we have someone that can address current state efforts, we'll do that. So, Tracy. Thank you. All right. See if we have better luck.
I never thought that would be. Hi, everyone. So I'm Tracy Mcintyre. I'm the director of the Montana Cooperative Development Center, and I am honored to serve as the chair for the broadband committee. I have a great team. And so I think we recognize some of you guys, but if you're part of the broadband committee, would you raise your hands? There's more than that normally. But we have a pretty diverse team. We do have a lot of providers on the calls with us. We started meeting last July. And then on the MEDA website, I'm not going to read you everything. We developed a list of themes. We took those into the legislation. We followed the legislation pretty closely. And then at this time, what we're looking at is trying to see what the commission does. And so we have money in what was House Bill 297. There might be more in 632. And then, hey.
Towards yourself. Towards yourself.
Close?
Not up. Yeah. Towards
Okay.
yourself. Not towards the ceiling.
Okay, there we go. That did not work. Can I just yell? Yeah. Can I do that? Okay, can everybody hear me better this way? I'm so much better without mic. Okay, so what we've got going on is we do have the commission's meeting. We are expecting to see a lot of programs coming out of that. And then there's a ton on the federal side as well. And so right now our committee is kind of taking a little hiatus. We will start meeting again if anybody wants to join us to start seeing what our next steps will be built off of that and how we prepare to get people ready for those applications that we are expecting to come out here in the near future. This is a full statewide issue. This isn't a rural, this isn't an urban. Everybody has some different struggles. And we just need to be working as a team to kind of make, how do we get that in? And then how do we as economic developers help kind of build those bridges in broadband, and where do we need to have it? So I kind of gave a very quick overview. I encourage you to look at our themes on the website, on the MEDA website. And then I'm happy to take some questions if I have a few minutes, because I'm better at questions than talking.
Yes.
If you don't have any, then I can get up. Yeah.
So we thought about Starlink and how that's going to interact with.
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions on Starlink. One of the conversations that we even put forward was, could we take some of those funds and actually use them to buy the equipment in those areas, those really remote areas that probably will never get broadband on the ground to them. Those funds can't be used that way though.
One of the conversations I thought was really great in that committee, a little bit I did start to take, was the fact that there was recognition that the federal standard for speeds was inadequate, and that I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, like the goal is much higher in terms of speeds now. Maybe talk a little bit about
yeah,
that.
so
I mean, that was a big deal.
Federal standards is 25.3. The new funds are coming out and everybody's a little different. Our state was at, somebody help me, Allison, was it 50, 120 or something, but now the feds came out that you have to meet 100. So that's 100 down, 100 up next. Julie.
Tracy, for those of us in the room that are new, can you kind of tell us what the goal of the committee is? Just broadly, I mean, so that people know what you're working on.
So for us, I think what we were really trying to do is find a common ground and educate. And one of the biggest things with broadband is everybody wants to use different language. They want to understand, like everybody's coming at it from different angles. So if we can educate people on what broadband is, the difference between Wi-Fi and fiber is a big one. You know, we got a lot of complaints. So I work in co-ops. We've gotten a lot of complaints over the years that there's no cell or no service in just using this as an example, Big Sandy, and yet we have a co-op that has that entire area covered. There was no Wi-Fi in Big Sandy. And so trying to educate people on that, and then bringing that group, like what can economic developers really be doing, and how can we coordinate and work with our providers that currently are in the state, and where do we need to expand without damaging those current providers as well? Because it's a very complicated conversation. Yeah.
I was just looking at your list, and there's some that aren't on here, like rivers or something. Did you do a
What
list?
That's
That's from the.
yeah, I noticed that ones were missing from there too, Tracy. I didn't have any input on that. So, yeah, so I noticed the same thing, and I made a note to call Mary and say, we're missing providers on here. So, yeah. Oh, and I got stopped.
I know.
And done.
Where is? Oh, it's not. It's stopping it yet. So,
That's fun.
So I'm Patty Fleming. I'm with the Montana Manufacturing Extension Center, and I was honored to be on the Value-Added Ag Committee this year. Our goal was to get MEDA known as a major player when it comes to value-added ag in the state, especially given the fact that the governor has put a big emphasis on it. And our report says that that is a huge opportunity for us. I think we all realize the massive amounts of agricultural goods that are shipped out of the state. And unfortunately, it's only about 15 cents of every dollar spent on food goes to farmers and ranchers. So if we could even capture just a little bit more of that and just doubling it, imagine what that would do to the economy of Montana if we doubled what value we get out of our products, our ag products. Some of the things we realized in the committee was that everybody in MEDA is a player in value-added ag. May not realize it, but engineering firms, you guys may be designing dams for irrigation systems. A lot of us are helping finance breweries. That's all value-added ag. So I also think we realize too that every time we see a truck leaving the state or a rail car, truckload of calves, that's jobs and economic growth that's leaving our state, and we're not capturing it. We came up with a one-page pamphlet that we wanted to be able to distribute to our legislators at the next legislator session. Unfortunately, we didn't get ours done in time for this session. We did also add to it several recommendations. Gloria has that on our website, so please take a look at it. What we do need continually, though, is anytime you hear a conversation going on about value-added ag, please insert the word MEDA in there and let somebody know that MEDA should be there. We talk about setbacks. I just saw, I believe it was last week, the governor took a tour of the state on value-added ag, and we were not invited. So that was a setback. So, like I said, please mention MEDA whenever you hear a conversation about value-added ag. Any questions for me? Yes.
Patty, I know as MEDA, we've adopted a definition for value-added ag. I think our next step is probably getting the Department of Ag to adopt either ours or just a definition. I'm the Food and Ag Development Center Director for Bear Paw, and with Department of Ag sitting in trying to help our clients get funding. I've been asked multiple times, well, is this project value-added ag? So when the department is asking that question, and I even had some issues with the tour last week because I thought some of their stops were not value-added ag. Those are services to the production ag. They're not adding value to our Montana product commodities. So I think that's one of our next challenges.
Yeah, and the definition is so hard to nail down. I don't know if we'd ever actually completely agree. Yes, sir.
What would be the pretty quick and easy resource for someone that just getting familiar with the whole value added? And your rural communities, we have people with a lot of agriculture, a lot of opportunities, but don't even know, what's the start, what's the story? Do you have any sort of case studies that are?
Oh, I think there's tons of them. Wheat Montana is a fantastic example. Every brewery, every distillery, every winery in the state is an example. anything that's grown in your area, if you could convince an entrepreneur to make a food product out of it, that's a great start. Having a community community kitchen is a great start. Meat processors and value-added ag. I think one great thing about value-added ag too is it's not rural versus metro either. You know, if we put a food processing facility in Missoula, that not only helps Missoula, but it helps all the farmers that are ranchers that are producing the product for them. So it goes across east and west.
Thanks, guys.
Nicole, please. Put the mic in there.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm not Nicole. I'm Kelly Creswell. I'm a new MEDA member. We've been involved for about a year. I'm the executive director at Reach Hire Montana and also with the Montana Youth Apprenticeship Partnership. I've had the pleasure of being in the working group under the leadership of Nicole Rush from the Missoula Education Partnership and Mary Craigle from Department of Commerce. They've done an outstanding job. And if you look in the supplement that you received, you'll see that we have a pretty robust mission statement for our group, which reads in part, Montana's workforce depends on its population, their skills, and overall participation. Thus, growing the state's labor pool requires population growth, skill growth, and/or increased participation. Stakeholders must make workforce development a top priority, dedicating leadership and resources to the effort at a strategic level. From there, we've developed 6 draft policy goals. Because they're draft, I would say there's 3 main themes of those policy goals. The first is to streamline engagement in the assets and programs that already exist. The second is to mind the gaps, which you're all aware of, housing, childcare, and workforce attracting the workers that we don't currently have. And then the third theme is to be nimble by leveraging resources and meeting current and emerging needs for skill development. So there's lots more in your packet. I can attempt to answer questions if you have them. All right.
What's included in the workforce remote group? What's not included? As far as like things that people might think are included?
I think education's not really included in the workforce group. So
remote education?
All education. Anything else?
I saw in the overview some focus on specific industries. I don't know if this is your working group or just more broadly, but interested in whether folks are looking at the construction and development industry as a targeted industry, or there's a need for a lot of growth.
Yes, we've not talked specifically about targeted industries within the workforce group, but other groups may have more targeted conversations on industry focuses. Okay. Oh, Steve.
One of the things that we talked about, very relevant right now, is the multiple tables out there that are having a dialogue about workforce right now. Higher education, K-12, our working group, and then just keep multiplying that. We really should learn from the Montana Infrastructure Coalition kind of model, where they are all things infrastructure, getting policy and other things done. Can we create an all things workforce talent attraction table and include everyone that's having a dialogue now at one common table, at least maybe a couple times a year, so we can build some momentum and cooperation. I think we've talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see if you read the specific goal language that's in your supplement, some of the things that have been talked about are centralizing under a single brand and vision, which I think speaks to the Infrastructure Coalition Group, and also creating a central hub to convene all of the different entities that connect to workforce, because it's a thread throughout all of these topics. Thank you.
My name is Tara Masteau, and I work for Montana State University Extension. Can you hear me? No, Larry says no. Sorry. So I am on the remote work committee. I did not start it though, so I came in late to the party. So I don't know the history, but my background is in economic development, but I do work for Extension, and I heard about an interest in remote work, and Utah State University Extension started a remote work certificate program. So if you see a flyer in your packet, I guess I just want to make sure that you all know about that. So that's my piece that I'm bringing to this remote work group. It's we have a monthly meeting. So if you are interested in this, please join us. So this remote work certificate program we just launched it. And if you guys, now I realize I have a monthly marketing project, which is not exactly what I was signing up for, but that's what we've got. So, but it's a really great program. It's 4 weeks. It costs about $200, and it really fills in the blanks for the people that want to stay where they're at and get a better paying job. So, you have a question? Yes.
So I was just curious, once the people who go through this course get their certificate, is the program then connecting them to companies around the country?
Yes, so we have a really cool partnership with this. So it's an extension program. So we're doing that, we're kind of a human touch. The Utah folks do the actual education. They put a lot of money into developing the curriculum. And so our extension folks are educators, and we're embedded in our communities. So we are walking folks, or kind of a human touch, helping them out, correcting homework, that kind of stuff. And then we have a partnership with the Job Service of Montana, and they have sent some folks through the class. So they are kind of specializing in helping people find remote jobs. There's really kind of 3 audiences for the class: people that are looking for a remote job, but there's also people that want to work with remote clients. So they might be some kind of a business, really more like a consultancy, like an attorney or a graphic designer, grant writer, that sort of thing. So when we have somebody that comes through like that, we're going to send them to work with the AMRI program at U of M. I think Carl is registered. I don't know that he's here, but people are going to work with Carl to do to expand their business. And then it's also really great for professional development for people that are already working remotely that want to boost their skills a little bit.
So is somebody within Job Service actually going out and finding companies nationally that are looking for remote workers?
No, not right now, but there are some existing resources, and the Utah State University Extension folks have identified those, and so our Montana State or our Montana Job Service people are getting well versed with those.
Thank you. Adam?
I'm Adam Mcguire. I'm the chair of the Capital Committee, lovingly because of Tracy. She basically said I can't sit in the back of the class anymore. So we're pretty fledgling group right now. We've been meeting pretty quickly and weekly to talk about capital in general, just how important it is to the businesses that in our regions and our towns, and how we can more effectively get more money through the EDOs and into our businesses and work with our partners of the state. So currently, we were really focused on the ARPA funds, obviously, and the SSBCI money, and how we're going to get that in the hands of our EDOs and our businesses over the next few months. And so we've been working with Commerce and the Governor's Office and Director Osterman to have conversations about moving forward. And so right now, we're working really hard to make sure that as many EDOs as possible get access to those SSBCI funds, and potentially having an RLF put together through the ARPA funds for each of the EDOs in the state that are eligible for those programs. As we move forward, we're going to continue to talk about how we get our partners at the table with banks and other financing opportunities, and how all the MEDA members are talking about how we're better at getting money on the ground than if the state government does it. And then having conversations about other types of capital and how we're getting into our businesses.
us the money.
And of course, we've done some things like we put out some stuff about getting CFI trained for the EDO so that they can be eligible for more treasury money. We have a running new RLF success stories project that we can give to legislatures and commerce in their conversations about why we're so successful at leveraging dollars.
Was there any sort of like talking points that we might be able to approach our commissioners with? I mean, there are things that I've heard of like at state level, but there's a lot that we can talk with our commissioners, our city. Is there?
So that is, so the first step in that was putting together our RLF success stories. But the committee will be getting more information out to all of the membership on what we're talking about to bring to them to show our success.
Remember, we also have the memo that we put together for the Department of Commerce about the importance of auditing. And so we can certainly share that with anybody that wants that talking points.
Good morning. My name is Rick Edwards. I'm from Northwestern Energy in Butte, and I have the privilege of sharing some information from our legislative committee. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I've never had a problem with people not hearing my voice. It carries pretty well. So just a few things to talk about. First of all, I want to tell you that you have a very dedicated legislative committee working on behalf of this organization. We get up and we have meetings every Wednesday morning at 7 o'clock during the session, and we've continued those meetings after the session. People are very engaged. And I want to talk a little bit about the 2021 session first, talk about things that we're doing now, and then kind of talk about where we hope to go in the near future. When we talk about the 2021 session, it's different to say the least. You know, obviously there weren't many people in the Capitol, lots of Zoom, all that sort of thing. And really, from a MEDA perspective, our focus was retaining the funding for the programs that we already have. We're really trying to, if you will, be in more of a defensive posture. And I think for the most part, we were pretty darn successful from that perspective. When we look at the 2021 session and just look back, you know, we retained most all of the funding for our programs. Some was increased. We expanded some focus, and as Tracy mentioned on broadband, we brought that kind of to the forefront, if you will. We did a lot of different things in regard to infrastructure, you know, your TCEP programs and all of those kinds of things. Pretty damn good success there. We had a little bit of a challenge. There's one troublesome tax increment financing bill that got through. We weren't real pleased with it, but it is what it is. There was a reduction in worker training monies. We weren't happy with that, but that was more of a push from the administration, if you will. And quite honestly, we did have good cooperation with the Department of Commerce and the administration on a number of different things that we were trying to accomplish. So overall, I think a good session, not a great session, as Steve mentioned, and I think we've got some real good opportunities to look forward to in the 2023 session. Since the conclusion of the session, the legislative committee's really been focusing on the ARPA, the rescue plan, and how all of those funds are going to get sorted out, and participating on with or interacting with the different commissions and those sorts of things. You know, some of the things that we've been focused on is making sure that they're advocating for RLF funds to support capital and those sorts of things. We want to or have supported grants for businesses that were impacted by COVID, expand funding for capacity for economic development groups going forward. As Patty mentioned, value-added ag, bringing that to the forefront. And again, given the challenges we have with workers, maybe automation is a key. So how do we blend those couple of things together? Thanks, Gloria. And then looking at different capital infrastructure kinds of things. So that's where our focus has been here of recent. Going forward, the legislative committee will ideally take what comes out of this exercise over the next couple of days and then begin to move some of those initiatives forward that you guys all believe are of extreme importance in anticipation of the 2023 legislature. So that's kind of where we're going. Gloria, I'm going to steal a couple minutes if I could. I know we're a few minutes ahead and there's nothing worse than being the little fat guy between people and lunch. But I want to circle back for a second and talk about where we're at and what we're really trying to accomplish. Remember that, as was mentioned earlier, these economic development programs that we have been out there for 20 some odd years. And so it seems like every time we go into the legislative session, people are saying, well, are these programs still effective and those sorts of things. Ideally, what we want to do is make sure that Montana is competitive and that we're moving in the right direction. We're innovative, right? So with Steve and everybody's expertise, one of the things that we did was send out or do this next gen survey. And really that's the opinions, not just of folks in here, but others as well. Some of our other stakeholders, like the state chamber, like the League of Cities, like MACO, and I go on and on, the universities and so on. So that end document is kind of a, if you will, a synopsis of the opinions of a lot of people in terms of what we should be doing from an economic development perspective. Our goal in the next 2 days then is to take all of that information, digest it, and ultimately bubble up to a few things that we as a group can agree upon. And then we will work with our constituents or our other stakeholders, again, MACO, League of Cities, so on and so forth, as well as the administration and those sorts of things to move these things forward. So that's ultimately what we're trying to get to. And the end result has to be that we're all basically in lockstep with each other in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, and then be prepared to move forward and be evangelists, if you will, as we talk to the administration, we talk to these different organizations, these are the things that are needed, and this is the perspective from a broad coalition of Montanans. So with that, questions, comments, anything? Steve, anything to add?
I would just say, preach it.
Amen.
Kind of characterize what we're trying to accomplish.
That's right. That's right. But I think that's the key, because one of the things I heard earlier was, a lot of this stuff is MEDA, and yes, it is. But we did draw perspectives from other groups as well to develop that report. Yes, ma'am.
Just a question. So as we saw earlier in the survey, workforce housing is shown as one of the top priority issues. But Montana Housing Coalition, that's all they focus on. How do you see MEDA interfacing with that? Because we certainly don't want to get into a position where we're duplicating what some other groups are doing that are specifically focused on issues. I mean, we need to maybe bring our perspective to their process. That is happening already, but that may not be, even though it's a top priority issue for us, it may not be one of the things that we try to focus on. Just somehow.
So I guess my perspective, and I'd certainly open it up to others, but my perspective is at least we have to be or have an awareness of what they're talking about. It comes back to communication, right? We need to understand what they're trying to accomplish. They need to understand what we're trying to accomplish, because we all believe that, for true economic development, you have to have housing, you have to have workers, you have to have competitive wages, so on and so forth. And so maybe we're not necessarily in the lead in that particular area, but we at least have to have the awareness so that as we develop stuff, we're not conflicting with each other, but rather supporting each other, if you will. Is that fair? Why don't I go here and then here?
So,
And Gloria's telling me to stop and shut up, so.
one more speaker.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Sorry.
So to your point, I'm now with the Northwest Montana Community Land Trust, which is doing affordable housing in Northwest Montana. And we're under the umbrella of NeighborWorks Montana, and Kaya is the director of that organization for the entire state. And we are here specifically because we want to be that bridge between the and.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
I'm gonna piggyback on what I was gonna say. When I was economic development, our board, we would have people on our board that were tasked to be on other boards. And then, maybe they can do the same, like they have one person that comes to our MEDA board meetings, you know, so like from those different organizations, and then we delegate somebody to go to their organizations and participate in their meetings.
And I will tell you, Steve, just one quick second. One of the things we do at the beginning of each legislative session or prior to each legislative session, we get together with all of our partner organizations, MACO, League of Cities, University, and so on, and compare legislative agendas so that they know what we're after, we know what they're after, all those sorts of things. And I think all of that communication just helps move us forward. Steve, one thing, and then I'll get out of here.
Yeah, I had a little bird chirping in my ear on a thought. As you share, you know, what happens next down the road as we come together with some ideas, we vet that with our partners. We get massage and we build this collective kind of vision and things we want to accomplish together. It still comes down to us working at our local level, building relationships with legislators, sharing those ideas with them, educating. So that on the ground work has to be played out at the local level, even as we do this work. The other thing I wanted to mention, maybe I should have mentioned this morning, when you go through this, what Mary did, I think, was powerful. It didn't, not everything listed in here as an update was a direct result of the next gen analysis. But what she captured was that we moved the ball forward in economic and community development in areas that were part of the conversation in the next gen analysis. So we could actually look at this document and say, we made some strides forward. We're starting at a different place now than we were when we first did this analysis. So just to provide some context around that, I think, did a masterful job on how she put this together to help propel our conversation going forward.
Yeah. Well said, Harvey. All right.
Thanks. I'm the last guy between you guys and lunch. I'm Adam Schaefer, the Deputy Director at the Department of Commerce. Gloria called me yesterday and asked me to speak, so I'll try to be real brief in the state efforts update. And you'll get much more from Director Osterman tomorrow morning when he addresses you. But as Steve said, Mary Craig will put this together, and it just kind of shows you the type of talent we've got at the Department of Commerce. I know there's a few of you here, so if you're with the department, if you can raise your hand. So if you have any questions throughout the day, grab them or tomorrow, or come up and see me. Our biggest focus right now, we have a lot going on at the department. So I'll just give a really high level, is our involvement in the ARPA commissions and the money that's going to be dispersed to help the state. The department, as most of you know, or if you don't, you'll learn a little bit. The Department of Commerce is part of the Infrastructure Commission. We are tasked with providing technical assistance to local governments on going after that water and sewer money that was allocated towards that infrastructure. And so if you have local governments or folks coming to you looking for advice on how to participate in that, make sure you check out the arpa.mt.gov website for more information. But then also our Community Development Division folks are tasked with helping walk through and provide technical assistance to the local governments. And I know many of you have expertise in that too. So if you're taking that load off of us, we don't know it, appreciate that.
But always, you can count on us to help out with getting those applications. And the first deadline is July 15th. That's the first round. Application deadlines for the water and sewer projects so that's approaching fairly quickly. And then we anticipate a few other rounds after that. We are also involved with the Economic Transformation, Stabilization, and Workforce Development Commission. Jenny Pillay and Wayne Johnston from our office are doing a lot of work, and I know I've been talking and meeting with many of you. We really appreciate the input that MEDA gave and recommendations for how to use that money across the state. So those are informing what we're presenting. Been tasked to present to the budget office and the governor's office for potential programs that might come in front of the commission. Also, if you have your own ideas or need to share comments, I believe there's just been updated spot on the arpa.mt.gov website to either put proposals in that'll then get vetted and presented to the commissions, or also just to provide public comment and feedback. We have also, because of those three pillars or the three gaps that we have, the workforce, housing, and childcare. I know that we're also taking a look at kind of some ideas that we might be able to put together and form some programs to help some long-term solutions using this ARPA money in that mission bucket. So, and we also have the revolving loan fund that you requested at the top of our list for now. So we'll continue to keep it there. The other areas, SSBCI, Carolyn Jones and Wayne Johnston are working on that. We will be able to bring on 2 staff from the resources we'll have there. But last update I got from Carolyn is we're looking probably at fall for the guidelines, and that's based on the Treasury deadline. But no, we're continuing to focus on that as well. And then the other big one we had sent to us was the Broadband Commission, $275 million to connect the state. We've had a lot of work go on behind the scenes. The commission's met once, and actually starting today, a lot of that work's going to move over to the Department of Administration as far as the administrating it, the hiring the staff that's going to run that, and Commerce and Director Osterman especially will have a big strategic role in that. He'll talk more about that tomorrow. So we have a lot on our plate. DOA is going to pitch in and help take some of that off our plate, but we still working closely on broadband. So there's a little news for you today on if you're interested in the commissions. And then just running down kind of our 5 pillars: community, business assistance, business attraction, and tourism, and who's the other one there? Anyway, and then for the community development division, we're excited to bring on a brand new division administrator starting in 2 weeks. Renee Lemon is currently at the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and has a strong background in community planning. We'll be taking over there for Jennifer Olson, who left us back in December. Those of you who've worked with her, we hope that it's been hopefully seamless. But we've got that project going on, bringing her on board. And then we also have the Montana Historic Preservation Grant Program, starting to get that money out of the door from House Bill 12. And then also the Treasure State Endowment Program, which will now be called the Montana Coal Endowment Program. We're also getting those funds out the door and awarded, those projects underway that fall into there. For the business assistance, we have our export office is working, set up our Taiwan office. That was, we were allowed to do that. The legislature directed us to do that, so we're working on that. We have our Indian Country Economic Development Program. We just sent out a number of tourism, Indian Country tourism grants last week. And then our film office, even though we didn't get the big film credit passed this session, we did maintain the film tax credit for the state of Montana, and we expect another busy year for the film industry here in Montana. And then for business attraction, hope most of you have had a chance to meet Frederick. If not, he's our West Coast business attraction and is leading our efforts along with the director in encouraging companies and going out and fishing for companies to get them to either move or expand to Montana. And we also expect to hire either Southeast and Midwest person fairly soon. So that's a new task for relatively new task for Commerce. That most of that used to sit in the governor's office of economic development. The governor's tasked Commerce with kind of being the spearhead for going out there, attracting and getting businesses to Montana. We've already worked with a number of you on prospective businesses coming in, and look forward to continuing that as we go through the years. And then I think the tourism, many of you, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure Scott will talk tomorrow about the Come Home Montana plan, encouraging Montanans who've either graduated from one of our colleges or have moved away to come back to Montana, bring your job with you if you can and work remote, or come back and help us with our workforce issues and come back to Montana, which we've also just kicked off our Recreate Responsibly, which is kind of the shifting from our COVID messaging and working closely with our Convention and Visitor Bureau folks to have a Recreate Responsibly message throughout the summer as we have a continued record-breaking tourism in the state. I'm going to stop there. Probably a bunch of other stuff to talk about commerce, but really appreciate the partnership that we have with all of you. We look at you all as our customers, so hopefully every experience that you have with us is a positive one. And I know it will be, but if there's an off chance that you're not getting the service that you expect, make sure to let us know, and we'll work to address it. But we know we've had a long, successful history with all of you, and look forward to those partnerships. And Wednesday, 7 a.m. morning calls during session were extremely helpful for us as we went through the session. Sarah.
I have a quick question, Adam. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't seen the new Come Home Montana video on the website, comehomemontana.com, it's fantastic. It's really, really great. But my question is, do you maybe tell us why economic development, and this is taking a step back, wasn't included in the CDBG CARES funding kind of formula? It was in the plan, but economic development didn't play a piece in the CARES funding. Is there any way to change that? I know there's a lot in housing. Could you talk to that for just a couple minutes?
I wish I could, but I'll have to get it from Cheryl. Cheryl's the one who was Cheryl Cohen, who helps with the CDBG. So I'm not up to speed on those changes that you're talking about, but let's chat afterwards, and I'll get to you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's time to eat. Lunch is just next door, building next door, I believe.
Yes.
So we're free until 1:15, and we'll start making our way back after lunch.
Exactly. So directly out into the hallway, the building right there is the one that you have to go to. The east side is probably the best to get into it. We'll have lunch over there, and then we'll come back after lunch. Gloria and everybody else will help to herd everybody, and we'll go from there. Hard to miss, that building right there.
All right, everyone. We'll get started back up. We have the pleasure of having in our company Dan Stusik from Senator Dane's office. So he's going to come up, share a few words, and then we're going to have Mary share some few words. We did such a wonderful job with the update of the Next Gen report. So she's going to come up, speak to us, and then maybe address a few questions. So we'll turn it over to Dan, representing Senator Dane's office.
Thank you, Jermaine. Dan Stusik, Senator Dane's office. Thank you for Gloria and staff for allowing me to come today. I am on a field trip to Dell, Montana tomorrow, just north of Lima. So I was unable to join tomorrow morning, but wanted to stop by today and just tell you all how much this group has meant to our office. I'm so thankful for all the coordination over the last year. I see a lot of familiar faces from time spent in Missoula and Billings, especially, and actually remember being on a conference call with Steve and staff in Billings last March when everything kind of hit the fan, and we needed to activate and certainly get the senator and other members of the delegation on a conference call and start talking about ways to move forward. So, state, federal, local partners just are so appreciative of all the work and efforts you put in over the last year. And so I didn't bring a letter necessarily. You've all heard that before. I know this is more of a working meeting, but wanted to drop by, say hello real quick. Just had a couple things that we're paying attention to in Congress. So just right now, the big thing is the infrastructure package. The senator is certainly concerned about the amount of inflation we're seeing in the economy, and thinks we need to be careful to avoid overheating it through additional spending packages to grow our debt. However, certainly encouraged by the prospect of a bipartisan infrastructure deal, but is waiting to see the actual text of the bill and accompanying pay-fors, before committing support to that. So, we're going to wait and see, and certainly have active staff participating in getting the latest there. If you haven't connected with PJ, who's our legislative assistant in Washington, very experienced, very helpful on all tax and economic development issues. I'd love to connect you with him or any of our local staff across the state. So just thank you for what you do, and just wanted to say hello on behalf of Senator Days, and thank you for accompanying me and letting me speak to you today.
Just so you all know, I know Dan's dad. This is how connected and how small, in a good way, the state is. So I met Dan's dad at the gym in Bozeman. I'm not gonna tell you where at the gym. It wasn't in the restroom where we met. And so we go out to lunch frequently, his dad and I, and he said, "Oh, you need to meet my son." Because I told him I had an interest in maybe kind of connecting with some political leaders here in the state and stuff like that. He said, "Oh, my son's kind of into that." He's like, "So I'll give you his number." He's like, "You should call him. He'll be a good guy, good resource for you." So I said, "Okay." And then last night, after yesterday's session, I was looking at the thing, or the other night, I was looking at the thing, and it said, and it had his name on it. It's like recognizing him. And I sent him a text. I said, "Did you know your name's on the agenda?" He said, "No." And so that's how small this place is, and that's how connected we all are. If I'm not connected, after only 2 years in Montana, 2 years in Bozeman, and less than a year at the Ridge Athletic Club in Bozeman. It's that easy. It's that easy. That's how connected this group is to everything that's happening in this state. So it's just proof positive that if you extend it, you can get things to move in this state. So man, appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Afternoon all, I'm Mary Cradle. First of all, how about that census? Woohoo! Thank MEDA publicly for all your support and all your help. We would not have gotten there without it. The redistricting committee was fabulous, thank you. But again, pretty cool, that worked out quite well for us. I'm up here today because I have an announcement to make with my co-bureau chief, Tom Kazurski. So Research and Information Services at the Department of Commerce does demographic, economic, geographic information, do a lot of economic stuff. But a lot of times people don't know we have a fantastic program that's led by Tom, and that's our industry development program. And because of that program and because of lots of CARES money that helped fund RIS, we actually had some year-end funding left over. So we have an announcement. So we have made some purchases, and I'm going to let Tom talk about a couple, and then I'll talk about a couple. So why don't you talk about the site selector?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. So many of you are familiar with the site selector tool that has been on the Governor's Office of Economic Development's website. And in the transition here, that site's been kind of transitioning as well. But we took the opportunity to use some year-end funding that Mary mentioned to interject some good background data into that site selector to rejuvenate it. So we purchased a year subscription to LoopNet, which is the major commercial real estate information service. And that's going to be linked directly in the site selector now. And we've also got it integrated with the multiple listing service throughout so all the multiple listing services throughout the state are going to be, at one time it was integrated with them, and that got lost due to budget cuts. So we're going to rejuvenate that tool. We're going to get it, so it's front and center again and available to you as a great tool that it is. So that's exciting.
And so wait, we're not done. Along with that, we also purchased a year subscription to Opportunity Exchange. I want to shout out to Christian Richardson from my staff that did the research on that. So Opportunity Exchange is really was set up for opportunity zones so that investors around the country would know what projects were available within those opportunity zones. But it's actually now widened out to any economic development project of any type. And so the plan is we paid the $30,000 subscription for a year. We'll hook you up for 1,750 different investors at this point across the United States, but it also hooks you up to all the opportunity zone funds as well as other funds that are looking for investment. We're going to set that up through our website, but we don't want to own it. What we want to do is make it a portal, a pathway, so everybody across the state can put in their own projects. So that's a way for us to highlight the great work that Tom and Christian do with IDP, but more importantly, the great work that all you guys are working on and opportunities. Oh wait, we're still not done.
There's more.
Let's talk about sales intel.
So sales intel is another business intelligence tool. And we were able to obtain a subscription to that. Frederick Van Nabel is, Fred, are you here? No, he was here earlier this morning. So that's another tool that we're going to have available to us. That is really a tool that he requested. He looked into it. I don't know, maybe some of you are familiar with Zoom Info. It's a similar type of program that provides lots of intelligence when you're trying to target businesses to go after. So we vetted 2 or 3 of those different services, and he found Sales Intel to be the best. So that's a tool that really is going to be largely something that Frederick's going to be using.
However, because we have Sales Intel, we'll also have what they have on us here in the state, all the businesses. So that'll be another way for us to be in touch with them, upgrade, let them know. I see my friend Red Donnelly. I would love to work with all those small businesses to make sure that all the information is great with everyone across the state. So I think that's all we went crazy about. Is that right? Yeah, except for a lot of Tableau for the staff. So anyway, I just wanted to make that announcement. I'm really happy to be here. I'm super happy to be able to do some giving back to my great MEDA colleagues. I really am amazed at all the stuff that you guys do. And it's fun to be in a position to help a little bit. So thanks.
All right. So we are going to do some really fun stuff this afternoon. We're going to be breaking into small teams. We're going to be discussing things, but we can't just break into teams. We've got to build rapport. We've got to get to know each other a little bit. So we have a little bit of an icebreaker. So a lot of words here. The most important thing is that you don't work with people that you know. Not be possible for some of you to try and work with people you don't know. So I'm trying to form teams of about 10 people. We're going to go for about 25 minutes on this little icebreaker event. Then we're going to go for the rest of the time on some discussion points, so open discussion amongst the group. We've got some forms, with some questions we're going to answer. We'll do a little report out after the break. So this is a chance for you to start to build a small group consensus, get your ideas out there, have a small chance to hear what your colleagues are thinking, what's going on. But for the next few minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to have some spaghetti and we're going to have some marshmallows here. And your challenge is to build a bridge across a 12-inch span to hold this jar of orange juice, right? So 12 inches across, hold this, and you will be judged up to 30 points by 2 judges, Jermaine and Gloria, who are going to judge your bridge based on how aesthetically pleasing it is, up to 10 points each, and then we're going to have a pass-fail. So it functions or it does not function. So we're going to break into teams. We're going to have about 5 minutes of design discussion, 10 or so minutes of building. You're going to bring your test down here, your bridge down here to be officially tested, judged, and then we're going to use those small groups and have more discussions and some questions for the small group for reporting later on.
Are you going to split up the engineers?
I don't know who the engineers are, so.
They should raise their hand.
Yeah, no, engineers, finally you're running. You're running. This is your moment, engineers. This is your moment.
Raise your hand if you're an engineer.
Raise your hand if you're an engineer. All right. We have at least 4.
You guys gotta be proud of us.
Marketing engineers. So we were originally thinking these 2 tables as one team, those 2 tables, those 2 tables. This group I'm a little bit worried about because you all seem to work together and know each other.
We need to split up.
So yeah, if you guys could intentionally kind of break into teams, do some swapping, find some people and friends that you don't know. The back table, that's a team. 2 tables, 2 tables, 2 tables. This might be a little bit small, so I'm join up with these ladies here. 2 tables, 2 tables, 2 tables. Is it generally understood what the goal is? I'm gonna start, so we're gonna have 5 minutes to break into teams, get ready.
We're about to be.
5 minutes to design, and it's gonna be, we'll come straight to our materials too. All right, 5 minutes, get together, go. All right, we're here to work, so the whole idea is, let's all get back together in teams. So we have these papers, so the goal is, there are questions on these. Within each team, the goal is to appoint one person to do the report out. You're gonna spend some time generating ideas about what's been missing in the next gen report. What committees did your group recommend for the meeting going forward? What do your team recommend to get ready for legislature in 2023? So you're gonna brainstorm ideas, you're circling the best one, and then that's what we're gonna report out after the break. So, good morning, I'm sorry. We'll figure out how to make that happen. We're gonna discuss the same things first, and then we'll then kind of go through the groups here on number. And then we'll finish up the discussion and then kind of wrap up for the day, including the announcement of who won the amazing spaghetti marshmallow bridge contest. So Adam, are you ready?
Can everyone hear me okay? Let's try this. Is that working?
Yep.
All right. So, hi everyone. I am the kind of strange speaker in the room. I feel like Space Odyssey right now, speaking from this little robot. I really wish I could be there. It looks incredible. Everything's looked engaging. You know, just finished up a fantastic conversation with online folks. So everyone's engaged, everyone's excited about what the future holds. And before we get into the team report outs, Jermaine alluded to this at, I think maybe 2 sessions ago, but we like to start specific sessions with, you know, whether they be safety moments or learning moments. And something that we like to share here is something that really relates to teamwork, collaboration, continuous improvement. And not everyone is familiar with car racing, but what we want to show today is how pit stops have evolved, you know, over the last 50, 60 years. And so really, before we get into a little video we have, I wanted to venture people to guess how long a pit stop might have taken in 1950.
Great.
120 seconds.
9 seconds, 120 seconds.
A minute.
45 seconds.
45 seconds.
3 minutes. 12 minutes.
12 minutes. $1, Bob.
5 minutes.
7 minutes.
Okay, so we have a huge range of answers, and I mean, you'll find out. Let me play this video. And let me know. let me know if you can hear the sound here. If not, you may have to restart it.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires.
Are you guys hearing
Only
that?
4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch.
Look at the guy with the hammer. That's my favorite.
Yeah, as you can see, things are taking a while here. Still going, still going.
The tires are changed at last. A crewman polishes the windshield as Holland moves away just 67 seconds after he stops.
All right, so 67 seconds.
57 seconds.
67, so 1 minute and 7 seconds.
Sorry, 6.
So we had
And so,
Right.
we got some close answers there. And what I want you to pay attention to in this next video, so this is 2013. Does anyone want to venture a guess as to how quick this occurs?
45.
Oh.
So 15, 45, 12, 47, 15,
32.
32, 6. All right, Adam.
All right. So one thing I really want everyone to pay attention to here is the number of people. You know, notice how each person has a role. Notice their posture before the car even pulls in. And we'll kind of do a quick little recap after that. But just imagine all the preparation that is required to kind of achieve this, you know, something that seems really easy and simple and not even part of the race, but I'll let you guys see for yourselves here. So that was 2.3 seconds, and that was in 2013, and the record was actually broken a couple of years ago, down to 1.83 seconds. And, you know, it seems like a little bit of a trivial example here, but one thing that we love to pull from this story is, you know, as great as teams may be, as high performing as they may be, there's always room for improvement. There's always room for incremental improvement. And when you collaborate and you work together, when you understand your roles, when you communicate effectively, then, you know, who really knows what the limit of what you can do is. So that's the intent of sharing that story. And that takes us to the team reports. So what we want to do is have plus minus 3 minutes per team. I think we'll want to start with the remote team.
Yes.
And we'll kind of progress through. So I just need to find our delegate from the remote team who will kind of speak to those 3 questions that we worked through.
Can you show them? Yeah.
Hey, Adam, this is Steve. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, hey, I'm sorry I'm missing all the fun in Helena, but the air conditioner is working great at my house today, guys.
Break it up, Steve. Break it up.
The one thing we identified that we were missing out of the next gen study was affordable housing. And we would like to see a new group started along those lines. A couple of the other talking points that I wanted to add on to that is Debbie Singer suggested that we have some talking points for each of the MEDA members come out of a communications group so that we've got something to share with our legislators, and that process needs to be ongoing and not, we can't wait till 2023 until the next legislative session, but let's get something going now and keep it rolling, even if it's to interim committees or legislative candidates or elected officials as they come up. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what we came up with, guys.
Any questions or comments for the remote team? Thank you very much for sharing, Steve. Okay. So now we're going to do team number 1. Who is the rep for team 1?
With the same
Is
numbers,
this the same
numbers
as
earlier. Hopefully, there's gonna get a game.
I don't know. Which one? Team 1. I think this will work over here.
Okay, my name is Kate McMahon and we're team number 1. And so the answer to the first question, what is missing from the next gen? Some of the items we wrote down were improving access to capital. And this sort of covers everything from needing loan guarantees for entrepreneurs that are applying for the loans. And then just sort of basic financial education for especially new businesses on the process of actually getting and what's going to be required as far as business planning and statements like that. Because a lot of people come in and they're not even aware of those, they think it's like getting a car loan. You run my credit report, and, I get commercial loan and kind of thing. So that was under the access for capital. Under broadband, we talked about one of the strategies that should be added is that there should be a process for community input and planning into making broadband investments in your plans, because it's possible that you might want to coordinate those investments with the city's capital improvement plan because they've got a major street rebuild and hey, that would be a good time to put fiber in there. Or, we want to connect, we have a new industrial park that we're planning 5 years down the road. We want to make sure the fiber gets out there. Right now, the strategies tend to be, let's just work with the providers and try to convince them to invest in broadband, but the communities aren't really telling them what their priorities are, and there's not coordination there. So we felt that coordination and getting broader community input, along with broadband planning is important. Also, looking at trying to look at the Universal Service Fund and utilizing that better, and maybe that's a discussion to have with the PSC. And then the other thing we had, this came out this morning, was that a short-term priority for MEDA should be to work with the governor's office before the legislative session, because we have the American Rescue, Act funds that are going to be distributed, and so we need to start working with the governor's office now. Question number 2, what committees do we need? We know that MEDA already has like a legislative committee. We sort of talked about a need and I think the group is probably doing this to some extent, sort of a marketing membership committee. Because when I look around the room here, look at the membership, MEDA is primarily professional economic developers. And maybe we should be expanding our membership to county commissioners, to hospital administrators, to business people, and trying to get that broader perspective. And that would have the advantage of, if you have these other groups that are participating with MEDA on a more regular basis, they can do some of that outreach to the community during the legislative session, and they bring more voices to the legislative, session. Rather, I mean, the economic development voice is important, but if you can broaden that and not just wait till the legislative session saying let's partner on a bill, but just have them be invested in MEDA on a regular basis. So sort of looking at expanding and broadening the membership of MEDA, and then what can we do to get ready for the 2023 legislative session is the education and outreach and getting ideas and the vision of MEDA in front of the legislature needs to start now. Don't wait until 2023. So you need to, maybe invite them to these events. I think somebody asked, how many legislators are here today? I think somebody back here, but, invite them to events, hold events for them, and do that before the legislative session. And that might also be me participating in some of these interim committees that the legislature has from time to time, if they're relevant, to the MEDA. So monitoring those committees and sort of participating in them on an ongoing basis.
Sheets. If it's in legible form, we'll then scan it and try and make it part of our consensus effort tomorrow. It's pretty good.
Hi, my name is Tracy Mcintyre. I work here in Helena with NBAC. One of the things that we felt that the next gen report was missing was it talks a lot about goals and things like that for the different committees, but it really didn't specify priorities for the various committees. We felt like that if there was more of a, this is where we should focus our attention, that it would be easier to reach goals and really set plans and move things forward. As far as what committees or groups would our group recommend, there was some discussion about maybe more focused groups, potentially subcommittees, as far as because there's some of the groups have such a broad umbrella that they cover, that maybe some subcommittees would be appropriate. But we felt more importantly that the planning and strategy committee would be best as an overall organization on how to move things forward. Then what do we recommend to get ready for the 2023 legislative session? We talked about doing a series of roundtables with legislators and businesses in their own communities, really getting the legislators involved with the communities, giving them a narrative of businesses to talk to, and just get them more invested and get that emotional human element into how these programs work. And that kind of stuff.
Thank you. 3. Right. I'm pretty sure you already put in all of this remark.
My group just all left, so that's reassuring. So we talked about, what was the question? What's missing is we talked a lot about the rural and the urban strategies that were identified there. We don't believe they're scalable for rural communities. The problems that the communities are facing are very similar, but the strategies are very different. So what works in urban can't just be shrunk down to fit rural. It has to be separate strategies. The next question, what committees? Our group consensus is no more committees. And so what we talked a lot about was trying to find some of those groups, some of those other organizations that are doing that work, and let's join forces. Let's try to communicate more. Let's market more. Let's not try to do everything, because we we can't do everything. And if there's already groups working on it, let's try to do that. And then to get ready for the 2023 legislative session, we talked a lot about sort of marketing, celebrating our wins, and it kind of all boiled down to we should all have a very strong, very singular message all going in that everyone in MEDA participates in, so that everyone has those same talking points, everyone has that very strong message, so we're all saying the same thing, and we're coming in as a very unified force. And that's it.
Thank you. Group four. Group four.
Hello, Sean Mcguire, Sweetgrass Development, representing group number 4. We had it down between a couple of options, but when it came to what was missing, we decided to hone in particular on the need for public relations and education when it comes to making the goals of the Next Gen report more broadly available and to begin to have that report carry more weight when it comes to not only public opinion, but also going into the legislature. All three of our answers wound up tying together under that umbrella. Therefore, the committee that we decided that we would want to have would basically boil down to public relations and stakeholder and partner education. I'm sure there's a much less loquacious way to tie that together, but we would want a committee to specifically focus on raising awareness, not only within organizations and without organizations, but also looking for ways to get that message out and to make people understand what the Next Gen report is and how to and why they should care is at the end of it. Therefore, in that hypothetical, what we would recommend to that committee is, difficult as it would be, is to recruit and monitor the activity of a team of MEDA ambassadors who would specifically go out to city council meetings, make relationships with chambers, and make a lot of the face-to-face conversations that would need to be the root of whatever other efforts we made to engage them. We can send out as many newsletters or put together as many graphics or pamphlets as we want, but without those face-to-face conversations, however it happens, we need a team of ambassadors to go face-to-face and make that relationship happen in order to carry weight in 2023. Okay.
Thank you. I'm Kim Roisaki with Northwest Montana Community Land Trust and NeighborWorks Montana. A lot of what we discussed kind of tapped into much of what you've already heard, so I'll be brief on those parts. Question number 1, what is missing? We thought perhaps identifying an actual list of potential partners, whether that's the High Tech Alliance for Tech or workforce or housing or childcare, identifying who those people are that we should be connecting with. Wage stagnation was another area, and programs that support knowledge-based companies. For an example, Big Sky Trust Fund is very much focused on job creation and perhaps infrastructure or equipment, and maybe we need programs that are looking more at how you support knowledge-based companies. So, question number 2, what committees does your group recommend? We thought that perhaps a tech committee focused on advanced industries might be appropriate, and also rather than a full committee, maybe just a liaison person or 2 to liaison with groups that are already doing housing or childcare rather than an entire full-blown committee. And then finally, question 3, what does your team recommend is necessary to get ready for legislature? Well, we all know that a lot of economic development dollars in the state of Montana are dependent on resource extraction. We know that that's not forever. And so what is the next source of that support? identifying that and understanding what that is might be very important. And sort of connected to that was, are we capturing the income taxes from remote workers that are working here? And that was just a question. I don't know the answer. And then finally, there is a group of experienced people in our organization who have experience with working with the legislators, with getting legislature across the finish line, or legislation across the finish line. And maybe we need, because there are many of us who have not done that before, or so many of us are new, that maybe we need the people who are experienced at that to sort of paint a picture of how that gets done, so that as we're all thinking about what happens in the next 2 years, we can actually envision how that actually goes. And maybe the resources for that are right here in the room. They just need to tell us how they've done it in the past and how we might do it in the future. So that's it. Thanks.
Six.
Behind you. Hi, my name is Melissa Masteau with WGM Group. I'm going to take my first minute of the 3 to introduce Team Back Row because everyone gave really insightful input. So we've got Alyssa, Kaylee is not in her seat anymore, Tyler, McKinley, moved out, John, Brenda, Kathy, Tony, and Ann. And also we had Joe with us. So if you haven't met them, they're all wonderful, insightful people. So first question, what's missing from the Next Gen report? The couple of things we focused on most were the workforce housing piece, as well as what Kim was just saying on the remote workers and capturing that tax investment. Also talked some about energy resources as an industry. For the second one, what committees does your group recommend? Nothing really new here from what we've heard from other people, but first that marketing piece, where we were talking a little bit about how with all that is in economic development, what is that one thing when Fred says, where are you going this week? To the MEDA conference. What do they do? This, where we had quite a few new people who needed help with so that marketing piece. Also the ambassadors, where that if there is a group really focused on housing, who's that voice in this room that should also be participating there. Last question, what does your team recommend as necessary to get ready for Legislature 2023? The single thing at the top of our list was to continue the legislative committee meetings in the interim. It doesn't have to be every week at 7 a.m., but some periodic time frame so we're not starting in 2023. Thank you.
Seven.
Kind of see this. First, I'd like to give a shout out to my team, who I must say all have photographic memories, pointing to the exact paragraph and dot that they didn't like in the Next Gen report. I'm kidding. That wasn't us. We spent a lot of time saying, I think it included that. So I think we all came to consensus on the following. The report was a good starting place, and not only in content, but in process. This process that we're all undertaking together. Great way to get buy-in. I think that some of the needs that were articulated in the report are now real pain points. So we talk about things like housing and childcare and community services. So recognizing that as we build our strategy for engaging key stakeholders will be really important. And so when we're talking about what committees does our group recommend, I know I heard another person say no more committees. I don't know that we're so anti-committee, but we did choose some language in that we thought a year-round legislative action team and members of that team that were capable of crafting policy statements on proposed legislation and talking points so that we could be more effective evangelists within our own communities and our spheres of influence and more effective partners to our legislators would be great. So that idea of having those people within MEDA that we could call upon to make us more effective in our jobs and make the legislators more effective in theirs. And then, what does your team recommend is necessary to get ready? Well, I think I just skipped to that point. That's all.
Lee?
So our committee decided that the one thing that we thought was missing was that there was not a specific industry cluster called out. So the report did say that we should go after clusters, but which cluster? That's the big question. So we thought that was missing, as well as the impact on COVID on the economy and education and workforce development. As far as committees that we recommend, we thought maybe a research and commercialization committee, also a economic opportunity committee to deal with all the new information that Mary and Tom talked about. And as far as get ready, we decided start earlier, develop a consistent message with 3 or 4 key items, educate and advocate with all MEDA members, communicate with the legislators on a local level and during the interim.
All right.
I'll be called today. So I'm Christy Dawson from Montana West Economic Development in Creswell. And our group felt that the thing that was missing, and we heard it here as well, was a really defined action plan and a strategy around the next gen report. A structure based on the recommendations that are in there, and then a consistent messaging and communications plan so that we can all be telling the same story efficiently. As far as the committees, we really felt that those priorities and that action plan would define what committees were needed to carry out the strategy that we had picked. And then as far as what to do to prepare for the 2023 legislative session would be to really define those priorities clearly, secure the commitment within MEDA, all of us committing to those being the priorities and following through with that action plan. Setting up any clear partnerships that we felt we needed to achieve those goals, and then defining a clear educational strategy and message.
Good afternoon, I'm Luke Baden with Mission West Community Development Partners, and I'm the speaker for Team 2. We're quite late in the process here, so I'm not going to go through everything that we discussed, but the consensus points on the first thing that what we believe was left out of the next gen study to the extent that it should be included is housing. And we think that housing underlies all of our community and economic development, and it's the biggest of the big elephants in the room. And the second thing is that we think that there should be a committee added for housing, and that committee should also invite and include other people outside of MEDA. And then finally, that on the legislative front, that we should begin to discuss these issues with legislators now and have a continuous process all the way through the next legislation.
Hi, I'm Deanna Morrow with Black Tech, and ours really is very similar to what we've been hearing. But I will say, for questions 1 and 2, our teams didn't exactly come to a full consensus. We did finally agree that for question 1, what's missing from the Next Gen report was diversity and equity, especially when we look at the Attracting Workforce Back Home campaign. You know, are we including people that maybe don't look like us, or maybe their families are structured a little differently, as well as our tribal groups in the area. So that was ultimately what we decided upon, but we also were really torn between transportation and logistics, especially addressing supply chain issues. And then question 2, first, we talked about a lot about energy and environment, but ultimately we decided, as many of you did, that we needed a communication committee to really have a unified voice, and perhaps a talking paper that would be a living document so that all MEDA members could have access to it, and it would grow perhaps something different for small, mid-range, and large communities. And then question 3, again, many of you have said this already, but really determine the goals now and then start acting on those so that we're ready for 2023.
Hi, I'm Allison Corbin with Big Sky Economic Development and Billings. So for us, on the first question, we really talked a lot about defining what it is we lead and what do we support. So we know what our role is, and making sure that we are leaning on our subject matter expertise to establish ourselves as the experts in very specific areas. The second question, we could not narrow this down. We thought of 3 great committees. Communications, the first. The second, rural focused, because there needs to be more sharing in that group, as well as a group that is focusing on tribal challenges, because all of those groups have different needs and face different challenges within their work. And finally, we think that one of the biggest things we need to work through is honing down the economic development strategies that we want to really lean into and work through in that Next Gen study, so that we're ready for the session.
Thank you. I have a question. Are all of the tribal regions rural?
Well, we have a newly federally designated or certified or recognized tribe, the Little Shell, which is headquartered in Great Falls.
Thank you for that. Well, we really appreciate you all participating so vividly in that, so actively. We're going to synthesize this evening, put it together, because I think what you all heard from one another is that there's consensus that already there for some things. Some things maybe not so much, but there's a lot of similarities in the groups, and that's not a bad thing, not bad at all, considering what we're here for. On that note, you know, we did the team building exercise for 2 reasons, well, 3, really. It was to kind of mitigate the doldrums that happen after when it's hot, after lunch, you know, because we can all kind of fall into this kind of a slump, almost like a coma after lunch. I know I used to do that in college. So many of the paper has gotten ruined with scribbles because I was falling asleep after lunch and things like that. So we wanted to avoid that. We want to get you up and moving. We want to get you working with one another. But also, we wanted you to figuratively build these bridges, right? Because that's what you're here to do. You know, so that was just an example. Working together to accomplish something that, you know, this left sketched out, it seems to be a little bit challenging. You know, there's a challenge in front of you as a group. But together, you can get, well, we didn't have anyone make it 30 seconds. But one thing that I noticed, who came and retrieved more spaghetti? No one. We had all these boxes here, right? So you could have made your structures a little bit more secure with more material. right? But we didn't do that. So that was just one of those things that we wanted to have extras of the stuff that would make it stronger. And we did, but we didn't leverage it. That's okay. That's okay. But we have to leverage each other. You know, again, sticking with that example, lean on one another, learn who your colleagues are in other regions, who your own committees with, get to know people better. If you're not on a committee, that's okay. You don't have to be. You know, in some instances, there are enough. A lot of people think there are enough committees, maybe there should be others. There's not a wrong answer there, as long as we're working together to accomplish the goal. So we have to know what the goal is, then we can set the plot the course to get there. So again, if you have not signed the banner, there's an opportunity for you to do it. Here as we wrap up today. If you don't do it today, you can do it tomorrow. But please understand what that means. That means that you are committed to doing this, to being in this journey together with one another to accomplish what needs to be done as we prepare for the 2023 legislative session. Okay, so I'll turn it back over to Brian, because I think we may give you guys back a little bit of time, because it's not cooling down. That is not happening. So we may give you back a little bit of time so you can go get cool and changed and refreshed and all that stuff for your evening. But so I don't know if it's Brian in the hallway.
So while we're waiting, did anyone hear anything from the other groups that they thought surprising? Anyone surprised out there by anything I heard?
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay, it's coming. Surprising. Anyone surprised by what they heard? Anything
So much surprised, but I was really happy to hear that group's discussion of diversity, equity, and
anything else surprising or interesting?
It was all interesting. Come on now.
It was a fair amount of consistency.
Sorry, fair amount of consistency. Yes.
We've often talked about rural urban issues. I appreciate my comment that was referenced that we may share the problem. Probably look similar strategies, different size, scope. One thing I've often thought would be healthy is we can't just have a table of all urban folks trying to figure out their stuff, or frankly, all rural folks trying, if we're not sharing a common table to work on those strategies together, we're missing opportunities. Because what's fundamental is that I want to be able to champion a strategy that works for a rural community, even though it may not work for me, and vice versa. And the only way we're able to do that is for learning those things together. So having a common table, regardless of where we represent, is important.
Great. Any other comments? Results. I have to wait until I finish.
21st for all.
Yep.
Do you want me to fill some time? No, come.
So the one thing I did want to mention is Staley Engineering was kind enough to give us a couple door prizes. People put their name in here. I've got 2 names that won the door prize. I did not pull this out. That is the first disclosure. So one of the 2 winners, Ann Pichette, who works for MBAC. And the second winner is just about as far as you can get from here, is Alyssa Miller from Eastern Plains.
Yeah, that's close. Okay. So the winner of this gets all the spaghetti they can get. Okay, so the highest aesthetic That went to team number 11. There's also one replaced. Congratulations, team 11. Team 11, where are you? Back there. Back in the back, thank you. Okay, so second place with 20 points goes to team number 1. Team number 1. Even though the most bold, ready to be tested first. And second place. Now, the tiebreaker had to be applied here. So it did have a little bit higher aesthetic. They had the same amount of time holding up, which was 5 seconds. No one got any points on that. So 21 points goes to team number 5. Congratulations. Congratulations, team 5.
Was it? Nice, good job.
All right, so this is going to give you back a few minutes. Brett, we have some announcements. Yeah. Awards.
Oh, yeah.
Awards opening.
So for those of you who are new, we have an impact awards program that's modeled after the National Association of Development Organizations. We're going to open up the round, I think, right now. July 1st. We're going to open up the round July 1st. Applications are due midnight July 1st. No. We'll give you a couple of months. So over the summer, you can fill these out. Really, a great application should take you no more than a couple of hours. We really tried to make it simple. This is a great way for us to demonstrate our impact across the state in every size community and in the wide variety of things that we work on. I think we had 8 or 9 awards issued last year. So we have an independent jury that will look at these. This is not best in class or anything. This is recognizing impact across the state that is produced by MEDA members, most likely in partnership with other groups in your community or region. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we went into the next legislative session with a map that shows our impact across the state? I would be ecstatic if we gave away 50 impact awards. It's a little frustrating, I'll admit, because I hear all throughout the year about all of the great things that you're all doing, and then we don't get applications. So please take some time. If you have any questions, ask Gloria, contact me. You could go on NATO's website, nato.org, not NATO, but NATO with a D, 2 somewhat different organizations. And look, because they have years of this, and that's what we want to build up here. It's one of the best ways to be able to demonstrate how we're using all of these different resources, locally, state, federal, to produce some great impact. There is no minimum size project. I mean, if we work with a one-person startup that creates a job, that impacts a family and probably some other families as well. So there's no scale size here. You just have to put on paper what you did and what the impact was, because the jury can only judge what's on the paper. So please apply, and the awards will be presented at the fall conference. Thanks.
Thank you all again. We started today the journey of building consensus and prioritization, maybe without you realizing you were doing it, which is great. Tomorrow we'll do it much more intentionally. we continue that effort and an attempt to help form the basis and the foundation for the plan that will then be put together, communicated, and informed. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Brian, and then we'll get out of here.
Thank you. Once again, people like Paul, John, there's a lot of new faces in here, and I do want to make sure that we continue to thank everybody. I will use that as an example. This group here had somebody speak out about their report. That's my new employee. She's been here 5 weeks, 6, 4, feels like 5. That's so again, this is the next step. This is where we're going to go. Something that Brett said, we're really good at doing our job. Don't do a good job about talking about it. And Russ, what is it that we have a thing, we just want to get the shit done? It hurts us when we, it hurts us when we don't talk about it, the impact of doing that job and doing that job well. So you're good for the rest of the night. You can go out and, like we always do at MEDA, people get together, go out and have dinner, breakfast on your own. We're here at 8:30 sharp in the morning. Again, thanking the sponsors. The other one thing is we haven't had a group photo for a while. I think Missoula was probably one of our last big ones. For those who have a moment and would be willing to jump outside, if we go down the hallway straight out, there's a nice staircase going up towards St. Charles, and we can take a quick photo. If you guys can pull 5 minutes away, run out there, let's get a good photo and go back to showing us with impact. Here's the people who are going to do it. Are you good with that, Gloria? It's mandatory. Mike will do the photos, so just jump up, let's run out there, have a good evening, spend your money in Helena, Montana.